Hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. A little late and rolling today, but we're still about a minute away from going live on the radio station. So some of you may not have gotten the announcement for this show. We go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That doesn't mean, but I got feedback. There we go. I got that taken care of. So I'm just a little late making it to the stage tonight, as they say. So welcome. And we've got about 45 seconds and we go live over on the radio station. So if you want one of these nifty Intrepid tumblers with the Intrepid rocket, Rainy's got them. Two Loons tumblers. Here we go.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. It is I, Scotty Roberts. This is my show, the Intrepid radio program, right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY radio.com. You can go on over and you can join the broadcast over there in its audio format only because it's radio. Or you can come on over to my YouTube channel and see the video live simulcast. That's the word I'm looking for. The simulcast over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And while you're there, you can sign up and become a member of the channel, or you can join and also help support the channel. Just go over, you can hit the little join button down below. You'll see what I mean. And also, if you'll notice, there are almost 1,000 Intrepid Radio videos in archive on the YouTube channel. Now, I got all kinds of other videos in there, too. I got stuff with John Ward and Rocky Stucci and I doing stuff, doing investigations, things like that. I've got Egyptian videos over there, things like that. You can go take a look. I've even got some of my family videos up there. Not too much. There's no Vodio Do type of videos. Can't put those up on YouTube. But you can go and see a whole bunch of other kind of stuff over there. Even some of my books, a few of my books, I've read in entirety, chapter by chapter, and I've got series of them up over there. I've got old series that we did like on King David and some of those. Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee was Intrepid Radio, but the King David series was just prior to that. There's 17 or 18 episodes of that over there. So all kinds of cool stuff like that in my YouTube archive. So you can go take a look. I'm surprised it's all still there because YouTube gets a little hinky with me every now and then. And I've got one strike against me because something that we talked about on the show that we weren't really even talking about. It was just a subject brought up and we moved on from it. And they said I was trying to dispense misleading information. I said, no, I wasn't. And I said, do you actually really watch these things when you put a strike on us? So they are watching me rather closely, though. Where's my cold soda? I've got a couple of cans in array around the desk. I got to find the cold one. Put my hand on it to see which one's cold. First soda all day. And it's for this show. A little sugar-free Dew Zero. So there's no sugar in it. But welcome to the program. I want to thank you for being here. By the way, if you do want to help support this show financially, join down below or go over to my Patreon page. Patreon, patreon.com/Scotty Roberts. You can take a look at what's over there and what's going on over there. I'm not using that as a platform like I thought I would. because I was in rebellion against YouTube after they gave me that strike for nothing. And the thing I don't like about the YouTube strike system is you don't really have a good way to challenge that. You don't get to look the person in the eye and go, why are you doing this? What is it? Can you tell me precisely what I did and how that violates? They don't do that. And then if you've got like me, now I'm not, I by far, I'm not one of the most prolific YouTubers out there. I put a simulcast up there for my radio show, but I've got 1,000 videos up there of this show in archive. And if they chose to give me another strike, they'd take it all down. It'd be gone. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 strikes. I have to look. I think it's only 2. But they take it all down. They erase all your stuff. So you better make sure you have it all backed up. So updates on Ruben asks Anita Palmer, nothing. There is nothing new. I do not have the GoFundMe page set up yet. I have been so busy this week. It seems like there are moments I have downtime. And you could say, well, why aren't you doing that during your downtime? Well, because it's my downtime. I'm not thinking of it. So when I'm sitting here, I've been so backed up with stuff all week long, I haven't gotten to making that GoFundMe page. And I want to do that and get it done quickly so we can start getting you guys to throw a few bucks in here and there to help Ruben and Susie out because this is really killing them financially. And Ruben is some days not good at all. Other days, not good, but not as bad as he was the day before. But then he'll go up and down, up and down, up and down on a very low ebb. They want to put him into a rehabilitation home. And it's all insurance. It's all of that stuff. So I don't know exactly how it works. And I think Susie's not really up to snuff on how all that stuff works either. She's trying to find out how they're all going to make it work. And right now, Ruben is not in a good place. And should he survive long term, meaning, more than living on death's edge, I don't think it's going to be a pleasant life. I think he's going to have constant supervision, is what it's sounding like. So knock on wood, a lot of prayers still for Ruben. Maybe we'll see him come back from this. So we'd like to see him come back from this. So, sir, yep, everybody needs to back up everything at least twice a year. It's running right now, as a matter of fact. I've got everything that goes on this computer gets backed up to my backup system. And it's a time machine, and it's done through Apple. And I also have all of my shows that I do here. They will save over on StreamYard, but only up to 50 megabytes, something like that. So every 6 or 7 shows, I've got to go make sure I download them and store them. Otherwise, we lose them. Now, they'll always be over on YouTube, unless YouTube gets a hair up their ass and decides to pull my plug one of these days, and I got nothing left. So we'll see how that all works out. We'll see what happens and what goes on. So that's all that business. And about Ruben, I wish I could spend more time on that and tell you more. I just don't know much more. And I wish I did. So I don't know. My computer's doing something goofy here. There it goes. Window wouldn't shut, and I kept clicking on it to shut. So Field Guy is at 2 or 3 strikes, and they take all your stuff down at YouTube, and it's gone forever. I don't know what it is. I can't remember. So tonight, if you noticed, I was late coming in, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it to do a show. And I was worrying while we were driving back from the airport to get the kids. I was worrying that, I have not put up a notice of any kind. And do I even have time to get a notice up if I can't do it? Well, we got home with enough time for the kids to show us all the stuff. They talk about Disney World, argue with each other about this at their home all of a sudden. And then they all went to bed about 10 minutes to 9. And I said, it's 10 minutes to 9. I don't have any announcements of any kind up. I got to get downstairs. I think I'll go ahead and do a radio show. So guess what? I don't even have a topic tonight. So we're going to just do our own topic tonight. We'll just kind of go by the seat of our pants and do what comes. I might read something. I might grab something. I might grab an article. I might do something. I got so many things in here to talk about. This is a great opportunity to sit and see what can we do extemporaneously off the tops of our heads. Well, my head. And then you guys can all fill in. You can all talk. And there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff all around this room that I would read to you if I wanted to just sit and read, because there's so many good things to read. There's so many good things to listen to and glean some information out of. There was a book over there I was looking for the other day. Now I can't find it. I was thinking of something out of there. I got stuff all over there. So give me a couple of minutes. Something will pop into my head and it'll come up. So the problem is, yeah, I'm winging it, Professor Bauer. And so the problem is with anything here is that I haven't had any time to think about it today, about what I wanted to talk about. But you could pin me on just about any topic during the day in conversation, and I could go forever. I always tell people, you put a nickel in me and I'll talk for 4 hours. I could talk about stuff that I know really well. I could talk about philosophical things that I know something about. I could talk about familial things that I know things about. There's all kinds of stuff like that I could talk about. I've got, even up here, I've got something here called Witnessing the Divine, which was something I had wanted to talk about last week. And, well, that's what the title said here. Here it is, Witnessing the Divine. And this was all about, frankly, it was about the Magi and Mary and Joseph and all of that. And I have said, when you talk about it, because it's Christmas and this tends to get on our minds, I have a problem with the Christmas story or any biblical story. We relegate them to, and I've said this before, to the realm of storybook. They become religious fairy tales. They become mythological flotsam and jetsam that floats around, that we recite by rote sometimes the things we believe about these stories, these characters in history, without realizing that they're characters in history. Or we recite them, and then when we find out anything real about them, as far as archaeological data, historical data, when we start finding things out that are real around the events that are mentioned in those characters' lives, we generally haven't come up with a lot of characters out of the Bible where you find the historical record of that person. You find some of the peripheral people. You find peripheral data where somebody is mentioned in a story, and you see the events of his story suddenly unfold archaeologically, and you find out that those events happened exactly like that story said, or so close that you can hardly bring it into question. And yet the person might not be qualified as being an actual person through historical data. You've got the biblical story. You've got, you say the current version of Christmas, says Professor Bowers, a plagiarized pagan ritual. As I've talked about on this show, I think that Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth, was one of those in the earliest form of Christianity. He was one of those God men, the mystical characters, the Gnostic mystical characters that were elevated to a status of God men. And there are, and I've talked about this many times, there are at least a dozen Messiah-like characters back around the time of Jesus and a couple of centuries before him that all bear the earmarks and the bullet-pointed list, you can say, of the story of Jesus. You could read these points and say, point for point for point for point, this sounds like the story of Jesus, the nativity of Jesus, the ministry of Jesus, the death and the resurrection of Jesus. Yet you will find, as you read into these stories, that in at least 12 other cases, they're referring to 12 different guys that all had the same points of the story as Jesus did. Did you know that there are messianic types that are out there in the ancient world? That if I were to give you a bullet-pointed list that says, all right, tell me who I'm talking about. He was born on or around December 25th. There was a star that shone in the skies to herald his entrance to the world. He was visited by shepherds. He was visited by kings when he was a baby. He led a ministry for several years. He was a minister. He angered the government around him. He was executed as a martyr for the faith he was establishing. He rose again the third day after his death. He ascended to heaven. And all these other points, if I were to give you all of those points, you could come up with, like Sarah just said, Mithras. Exactly. That is Mithras to a T. But wait, that's Jesus too. So, and we all know that Jesus wasn't born on the 25th of December, but they aligned his birth through the church, early church, with the tales of Mithras and the tales of other god men, so that they could worship him on the same day and, in a sense, throw a bone or appease the people that they were trying to convert to Christianity. So Jesus, by the way, was not born in December. We know that. We all know it's a fake date. It was a date that was, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, we don't know when he was born, so we're just going to call it December 25th, like the other gods. Let's have our God take that over. Nothing really wrong with that. Except that's not when he was born. And there are details in the scripture that give you an idea of when he was born. I know we've talked about this before, so if this is recap for some of you, keep in mind, it says on the night that Jesus was born, that a heavenly host of angels appeared to the shepherds who were tending their flocks by night. And lo, as Linus and Charlie Brown Christmas said, and lo, an angel of the Lord appeared, and the glory of the Lord shone round about him. And he says, do not be afraid, for unto you a child is born in the city of David, and he shall be Christ the Lord, the Messiah. Yeah, Field Guy says he was born on 00 of 0000. Actually be 10, because it'd be year 0. But we know that King Herod died in 4 BC. But King Herod was alive when Jesus was born. So we know that Jesus was born at least by 4 BC, if probably not 6 or 7 BC, BCE, if you prefer, before the Common Era. So we know that Jesus wasn't born in the year 0 by the Gregorian calendar, or whatever calendar you want to ascribe it to. Steph wants her own city. Born unto you in the city of Steph, Cuervo Queen. Queen of Cuervo. There you go. So Jesus was born at least by historical records, if the historical records are right. And I don't see that there's any reason to believe that Jesus did not exist. I believe he existed. I think there's so much controversy and question about who he really was, though, and what he really was. Was he one of these mystical God men? Or was that ascribed to him as well? What did his followers ascribe to him that the earliest of church did not? And so he was probably born between 4 and 7 BCE. But on the night he was born, keep in mind, it says these shepherds came and they worshiped him at the manger, in the stable or the cave, which was a stable. And there's interesting facts about that too. And this is what I mentioned not too long ago on this show, that there would be shepherds that close into the city of Bethlehem, which is just a few miles outside of Jerusalem. I think up to 6 miles, something like that, 5 or 6 miles away. It's so close to Jerusalem. And these shepherds have their flocks in, that the nighttime when they see the angel and the angel says, go see him, he's in a manger in Bethlehem, they walk over and see him. Usually, about 11 months out of the year, shepherds keep their flocks in the outer pastures, like the back 40, like miles away from the city. It would take you a whole day or two to walk in. And this nighttime scene with the angels says they walked right over to the stable. What this tells you is that it was a particular time of year. There was only one time of year when they brought the flocks in so close that they were really in the hillside outside of Bethlehem and the environs around Jerusalem, and that would have been Passover. So the shepherds were there with their flocks for Passover. Passover takes place in what month? April, springtime, what we would call Easter time. If you ever notice while you're watching TV on Easter weekend, they always show the 10 Commandments. They do that because that was Passover. So the stories that we have of Jesus, even of his birth, we ascribed the 25th of December to him to match up with some of the ancient gods, to appease the people who worship those gods. But Jesus wasn't even born on the 25th of December. He was born most likely in the spring. So Jesus was not a Capricorn, or what was he? An Aquarius. Wait, what is it? What is 25th of December? Capricorn is January. Is that Aquarius? No, Sagittarian. Was Jesus a Sagittarian or a Capricorn? That's a good question, huh? Well, even the 25th of December, he wouldn't be a Sagittarius anymore. I think it's a Capricorn that starts on like the 22nd, 23rd of December, goes through January, blah, 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 blah. You get it. So I'm a Sag. So depends on the Roman records of when they did the census. Yeah, and those Roman records aren't even really clear about that census that the Bible calls out. And in the year of Caesar Augustus, he sent out a decree that all the world should be taxed, and that this is why Joseph and Mary had to return to their hometown. They were living in Nazareth. They had to return to Bethlehem. They had to return to the hometown for the Roman census. Now, there are records of Roman census that took place, but not that same year. So that's interesting. Is there a convoluting of historical facts? Did it actually happen in that year? Was it a smaller one? But he says he sent out that all the world should be taxed, meaning all the Roman Empire. So should be and Gemini embodiment of God and man. Yeah, that could be. What's in April? The month of, is that Gemini? April? Or Taurus? I know Rennie's a Taurus, which would be up until about April 22nd, isn't it? She's a Taurus because she's she's the end of April, April 29th. So from the 22nd of April and on, it's Taurus. What comes before Taurus? Say Aries. He stars the whole cycle. Taurus. Taurus is the end of April, though, Professor, isn't it? Because Rainey's the 29th of April, and she's a Taurus. And I thought it went like the 22nd, 23rd of the month is the flip over into the new sign. So it'd be the one right before Pisces. Pisces. There you go. So you've got Jesus born in the spring, more than likely. And he was born in Bethlehem because of a census. The census that we seem to be able to pinpoint was a few years after that. So I don't have the dates in my head, but there was a census that took place under Caesar Augustus, Tiberius, that took place at that time. But it wasn't the precise year and date when Mary would have given birth to Jesus, which would have had to have been before 4 BC. Let's just do this. When did Caesar issue a census around the birth of Jesus? Let's see if it's that easy to find that. The census of Quinius, 6 AD. So this would have been, that census would have taken place maybe 12 years after the birth of Jesus. The census of Quinius. Why was there a Roman census at the time of Jesus' birth? Is a good question. Luke chapter 2, verse 1 is the traditional starting point for many of the yearly reading of the Christian story. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. And thus begins the earthly story of the greatest king of all time, according to Christianity. And not the man with the lofty title, Caesar Augustus. Caesar was the unwitting he was helping unwittingly to set up this ancient prophecy. And by the way, that's why Jesus had to be born in Bethlehem. Why, if it didn't happen, why his followers needed to make it happen or manipulate it into happening if it didn't actually happen, because they were trying to align with the prophecies that spoke of the star coming out of Bethlehem. Not the star of Bethlehem, the star that would rise up out of Bethlehem, the prophecy of Balaam. And so it's doubtful anyone was grateful for the census at the time, by the way. Probably least of all the pregnant Mary. Could you imagine not having a vehicle to ride in? You got to walk or ride a donkey, and you're 9 months pregnant? Maybe she was less than 9 months pregnant. Maybe she was only 7 months pregnant, but the donkey ride induced labor. So it says she was heavy with child. She and her betrothed Joseph were members of a conquered people group. They were forced to travel under the Roman Empire, the Roman edict, the imperial edict, about 90 miles to be counted for the census of the conquering empire. So they might know just how many people it had available to tax. So how did a Roman census lead to the fulfillment of prophecy and so on? We can talk about that, but that's a little bit off the topic. But Caesar Augustus was fond of censuses. He took a lot of taxes to keep the enormous Roman army going, to build roads, to finance military campaigns, and to continue conquering the known world. Caesar Augustus was also generally a luxurious emperor. He recorded his Res Gestae Divia Augusti, the deeds of the divine Augustus. Quite a fancy name for a diary, I'd say. But he ordered widespread censuses of Rome at least 3 times: 28 BC, 8 BC, and 14 AD. And more localized censuses took place regularly in certain areas of the Roman Empire. Judea faced at least 3 censuses around the time of the birth of Jesus: 8 BC, 2 BC, and 6 AD. So I would say it was probably in the dating of King Herod, in the looking at the Magi story, which we talked about at one point last week. The Magi story, which the Magi probably visited when Jesus was a couple, 3 years old. They went to Herod and they said, "Hey, there's a king." And Herod says, "I want to find out who this king is so that I may worship him or kill him." And that's why the angel in the story came to the Magi and told them, "Go home a different way. Don't go back and report into." And that's why Herod went and killed all the babies age 4 and under. And then Jesus' mother and father, Joseph and Mary, they fled to Egypt during that edict when that went out. So there was this census, probably the 8 BCE census of Augustus Caesar. And that would be fitting, because if that was when the edict went out in 8 BC, and it gets to little old back dust bowl, dust water, Judea and Nazareth, they set out to go to their hometown to go for this census sometime in 8 BC. So by the time Herod died, 4 years had passed. So the scene with Herod and the killing of the babies and the Magi had to have happened in that first 4 years. This is presupposing the Jesus story is factual as we see it. So, in the biblical account, I mean. And so, and it's interesting that Luke's gospel is the only one that mentions the text, the census. And the other 3 weren't concerned with that. Luke was an historian. So that's what he wrote down. So sometime, the facts we know so far, if the story of Jesus that we read in the Bible is accurate, then Jesus was more than likely born 7 or 8 AD. Because Joseph and Mary would have set off from Nazareth to Bethlehem in BC. In 8 BC to go to Bethlehem to be taxed by the Roman Empire. A taxation that was issued by Augustus Caesar. 2 BC would be too late because Herod was already dead. Herod, who plays a part in the Jesus birth story narrative. And he died in 4 BC. So, presupposing all those facts are right, and we've talked about the shepherds being close into the city of Bethlehem for Passover, that Jesus was born probably in April of of 8 BC. Possibly because of the passage of time and the issuing of edicts. Maybe this edict went out in 8 BC, and it was April of 7 BC before Joseph and Mary got the news and traveled. Why do you think there was no room in the inn? Do you think that it was because, like nowadays, you get a census, you got 30 days to fill this census out, this report. Yet in those days, if they had to travel to their hometown to fill the census out, apply for the census, then they had to traveling time. It wasn't like hopping in your car and driving down to the public library to cast your vote. So they had to go somewhere. Now, when they got there, do you think that all these crowds, the inns were so full because of the census? Or could it possibly be the inns were all full because it's Passover time? And that's where everybody from all over Israel or Judea at that time traveled in to Jerusalem to do sacrifice at the temple in Jerusalem. And the inns outside, it would be like saying, we're going to Disney World. All the resorts are full because it's prime season. It's Passover, at Disney World. It's prime season. None of the resorts are open. We're going to have to drive out of town a little bit and go find one. I think this is why. But, they had to go to Bethlehem anyway. But Bethlehem was even crowded. This is Passover time. It's like looking for lodging near Boston around Marathon, says Randall Flagg. Exactly. Super Bowl, when we had the Super Bowl up here in Minneapolis a few years ago. Trying to find accommodations a week before or 2 weeks even before Super Bowl, impossible. Everything was booked out. So, and again, I'm gonna mention this, even though I've mentioned this in times before when I've talked about this. One of my pet peeves about the Christmas story is when you hear politicos taking some sort of twisting the story to fill whatever political need they have. It's talking about we need to have compassion for the poor. I get that. But it's using, I remember hearing the Reverend Jesse Jackson years ago talking about why we should take care of the poor in this country. And it was something at the time I didn't quite agree with what his point was. But the story he used was even worse. He used the story of, because it was happening around December, he was using the story of Mary and Joseph as being poor. And so poor, they didn't have a place to stay. And some guy had to let them stay in his stable out back. Now, that was for political efficacy, that Jesse Jackson used that story. I would say historically that is pretty off the mark. Number one, you got in Joseph. Who is Joseph? Joseph's a guy that was your modern day, ancient equivalent of a modern day contractor. He was a carpenter, which the word in the Koine Greek in the New Testament might have been in the Aramaic as well. The word for carpenter is the same as stonemason. It's in the Koine Greek. And so he was not only a carpenter, he was a stonemason or a bricklayer. And they think that he probably worked near Nazareth in the city of Sephira for years while that was being built, because it was right in the same time period. So you've got this guy who, I don't know that he was rich. I don't think he was poor, though. He came, and I don't think he was begging for a place to stay because he didn't have any money. I think he was like, look, I can pay for someplace. My wife's about to have a baby and we got nowhere to stay. And the guy says, look, all our rooms are full. I can give you the stable out back. He probably cut him a good deal. Hey, instead of 2 shekels, it'll be 1 shekel because it's a stable and you got to bunk in with the cows. And so that's what they do. And they said it was a cave. And there's a tradition that it was a cave. There's even one of the scriptural gospels mentioned that he was born in a cave. The cave being a house built out of a hillside that had a hole dug back in or had a cave in there. And there's, by the way, there are archaeological evidence of a lot of these around Bethlehem, around all the environs in ancient Judea, that homes had their stables attached to the home. You could go out what would be the living room door and you're out in the stable area, and it could be an indoor and outdoor stable. The animals slept basically in the house with you. And this is one where the inn was built into, hey, we got a stable out back, it's in the cave. They gave him a place to stay. So it was an interesting, all of that is interesting to me to say, Joseph and Mary probably were not poor at all. Joseph probably had means. Joseph may have even been well off. I don't know too many contractors. Well, maybe in this economy, there's more. And I do know some that don't do very well. But any contractor who is worth his salt, a carpenter, a bricklayer, a stonemason, they generally have pretty good workloads. And they're generally taking in pretty good money. They generally have a nice place to stay. They have a nice home. They have families. They generally have trucks and boats and things like that. Most of the contractors I know. Now, remember also, when Herod sent out the edict that all these babies should be killed and Joseph and Mary flee to Egypt. They've got a house in Egypt. I kind of rather think, this is speculative on my part, they either ran to Egypt and either knew people in Egypt already or had relatives there, because there was a huge first century Jewish community in Egypt, in Cairo, what is now Cairo. And you can visit that area today. And so they either knew people, or Joseph had people there, or Mary had people there, or maybe they had, like, we got a vacation home. We got the lake home down in Egypt. You know, who knows? Did he own a house there? Said they lived there for a couple of years. So did they rent a house for 2 years? Did they own a house? I don't know. So, and by the way, I think I saw Daniel Craig in here. Daniel, are you here? Did I see that right, or did I get something else? Yep, there you are. Daniel said this is also the time of the year when the ancient Greeks celebrated Poseidia, the festival of Poseidon, to appease the Aegean Sea when it was most turbulent. They gave an offering of grain and sacrificed a steer. And these days I have a beer and a cheeseburger, and I call it even. Way to go, Daniel. Love Daniel. He's a friend of my daughter's. He's a merman, by the way. Daniel is. So, and yes, Daniel, you and I need to talk about that message you sent me. So we'll talk about that. So all of these facts, you start looking at Jesus and you start asking, I don't believe that there is a reason to believe that Jesus did not exist. I think he existed. And I believe he was probably very close to the Jesus you see in Scripture, the historical facts mentioned about him. Once again, like I say about the Bible, I believe the Bible has efficacious history, where the question comes is what to believe about the faith story that's wrapped around that history. And so when you have the story of Jesus and his birth, you can say, sure, it took place this time of year, probably this year. This guy was the puppet king on the throne under the rule of Rome in that year. You may have had shepherds that came in and visited because they heard a baby was born. Who knows how the Messiah story got out? Was it angels that came to them? Or were the shepherds in town? You know, hey, we're going to leave Jacob over there with the goats and the sheep. We're going to go in and get a beer at the tavern. They hear, hey, out back, some woman just gave birth to a baby here tonight. Think of how the word of that would have gotten around. Busy town, bunch of people visiting. There's a baby out back. Or they visit this inn. Now, this is all speculative. I'm making up a story in my head. Maybe some of these shepherds, maybe they come there. Maybe they sell lambs or whatever to the innkeeper and his family who have a stable out back. And maybe the guy says, hey, tonight we got a woman in there that just had a baby. Careful out there. Hey, Adriana. And so you've got this story that you could create a speculative story on how things took place. Or angels from on high visited them out in the pastures. Do not be afraid. Lo, unto you is born this night in the city of David. And the sky shone round about them, the choirs of angels. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn king. I mean, was all that true? We don't know for sure. We believe by faith, if you're Christian, that that's the way that happened. I would even say that Sarah in our chat room, she's Muslim, but they believe Jesus existed. What special attributes they grant him? Was he the Messiah according to them? No, I don't think so. But you get the idea that you can believe the story about him religiously and that you can get a lot of controversy on. I think the historical tale about him, however, is one that is, you can question it, but it becomes incontrovertible the more evidence you hear of archaeological data that backs up the probability of that story being true. Historical events, and again, without getting into it deeply, the other end of Jesus' life when he was put to death, who was in the biblical tale? The Roman governor, the prefect Pontius Pilate. And for centuries, it was believed that Pilate was a mere fictional character in the Jesus story because there was no real evidence that he existed. There were a couple of mentions of him by Roman historians, but there were still not a lot of veracity behind that because they couldn't find any evidence in Judea, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's considered a prophet like Moses and Muhammad, says Sarah. There you go. So even with Pilate, it wasn't until 1964, we're talking 60 years ago, when they first discovered the cornerstone of Pontius Pilate in what was Caesarea Philippi, the Roman capital of Judea in the first century. And this cornerstone had right on it, Praefectus Pontius Pilatus, Judea, and it was a cornerstone dedicating a gymnasium to Tiberius Caesar. And it was a cornerstone that was found in a stairway, an ancient stairway. The ruins of Caesarea Philippi the stone had been torn down and reused for something else and was built into a staircase, an exterior staircase. And they found that when they were doing other things, looking for something else, they stumbled across this stone. It sits in the Jerusalem Museum today, which was very interesting because it was the first hard, solid evidence, other than just the writings of an historian, that the man existed. And existed as the biblical story said he did. So there were a lot of things like this about Jesus. I love watching historical stories. I love Szymka Jakubowiczy. Sometimes people say, oh, he's full of shit. Sometimes I think he goes a little far. But he did a great show, The Naked Archaeologist. He's a Jewish man, lives in Jerusalem, and he's an archaeologist, and he does a lot of biblical stories and digs into them historically. Little tongue-in-cheek most of the time, too, but he digs into things. And one of them, he was looking into the maniac of the Gadarenes, where it says that Jesus and his boys, they all pulled up, his disciples, pulled up at a place called Gadara, and they encountered the maniac of Gadara. The one other gospel says there were two of them, the maniacs of Gadara, and that he cast the demons out of them. This is the famous scene where he quiets the demon, the man with the demon, and he says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Legion." And he casts out Legion, 1,000 demons out of this guy, and they run into a herd of pigs, and the pigs run over the edge of the cliff and into the sea and drown. And the man is set free, the man of the tombs. And there was a story of the local town that said, beware of the man of the tombs. We chain him, he breaks his chains. He's vicious, he lives in the graves, in the graveyards. Well, the interesting thing about this is trying to find that location. There is a location on the Sea of Galilee that is known as the traditional spot, the Gadarenes, Gadara. Yet there aren't enough archaeological bits of evidence to support the story actually happening there. There's no cemetery, no ancient cemetery. There's no cliffs that the pigs could have run off into the sea from. And so it's, yes, and Matthew's given away the story. So Matthew, why don't you take over in the chat room? Matthew, this is something we've talked about before on this show, is that it's thought now, and this was something Szymka Jakubowiczy came up with, is that perhaps this voyage was on the Mediterranean and not the Sea of Galilee. And that Jesus and his disciples sailed over to Spain near the Pillars of Hercules, which is Gibraltar. But up in there in the Spanish side, there is a place known as the Gadarenes. Rocky, cliffy coastline and old cemetery there. There's a little village there that still to this day claims that Jesus visited them when he was alive. They've even got some kind of ancient, petrified mud glyph that shows the footprint of the sandal print of Jesus that they kept. The believers there kept, and there's a small sect of Christianity there. So this is one possibility for that story. So what I have found is that the stories in the Bible, as I've mentioned many times, are historically efficacious. I think the Bible is a glorious history book. What you can take or leave, depending on what faith you are the faith stories. You've got historical events that are wrapped up in faith stories, or vice versa. Faith stories that are wrapped up in history. Because so much of I say wow too, Matthew. It's crazy stories. Crazy cool, crazy good, great archaeology, great history. And so the story of Jesus, the story of biblical characters, many of the historical events can be verified historically. Matthew is a good study of these things. You look at all the things he writes about while we're doing this show. He loves history. Bible has great history in it. The books I wrote, book about Moses, Senenmut, Egypt. There's so much history to make the biblical story efficacious that you can't dismiss it. This is where, on a slightly to rabbit trail on that for a second, I get incensed with people that will say, "Oh, the Bible? You're taking that from the Bible? Well, the Bible is just a book of fantasy." And I'll say, "What part do you think is fantasy?" "Well, all of it." I said, "Well, why do you say that? What's your argument?" Because I can tell you where I know it isn't fantasy. So that, to me, is an interesting way to look at the Bible. Whether you're a believer in it, a non-believer in it, or somebody who's, you don't know either way what to believe. One thing you can take to the bank is that the historical efficacy of the Bible. And at Christmas time, when you start hearing of the stories of Jesus, you can pretty much bank on those historical events as being true, as having veracity to their historicity. There, I almost coined a Professor Bauerism. You got veracity to your historicity, along with your efficacy. Mine are just 2 penny words. His are 4 penny words. So, as you look at the Christmas story, realize that there's real history behind it. Another thing with the Jesus and the wedding of Cana. That's another thing that I had looked at very closely. Another part of it. Now, some of this isn't as much history as it is putting the pieces together and connecting the dots. But remember, the very first miracle of Jesus' ministry was when he turned the water to wine at the wedding of Cana. Remember, his mom came to him. He's sitting at the wedding with some of the guys who were his disciples. And they said, his mom's like, "Oh my God, we're out of wine." And she's complaining to Jesus, and Jesus is like, Mom. He says, woman. He says, settle down. I'll take care of it. I got this. Now, the big question is, why did she come to him when they were out of wine? Well, keep in mind, Jewish tradition, even back that far, is that the groom was responsible for the wine at the wedding. His family was. She comes to him. He's got power over the servants. He sends the servants out to get water, turns it to wine. I think it was his wedding. And I saw a big expose done on that being where Cana was and if he had relatives there and things like that and so on. So it's an interesting tale. All in all, talking about the veracity of history in the Bible. And I see we're already out of time. We got to get out of here. For the radio audience, stick around on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. Join the chat room. And for all of you listening by radio, thank you for being here. Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid Radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Well, welcome to the Captain's Cabin, everyone. Happy Friday evening. I hope you all had a good week. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Let's open up the Captain's Cabin. Anybody wants to call in and be part of it. And we'll talk a little bit tonight. We got a little bit of time. My kids are home from Disney World, where they've been all week with their older sisters. And one of my daughter's husbands, Zach. And Zach and Bryn and Abby took Flynn, Rowan, and Ellery to Disney World for the week. And as you remember, they took us a couple of years ago. They took the whole family down for a week, which was pretty cool. We had one more day than the kids had, maybe two. I think we went Sunday to Sunday. So they left on Saturday afternoon. They were there Saturday night. And they spent all day Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at Disney World. And then Friday, of course, today, it was get up in the morning and come home. No link on the YouTube. Oh, that's right. Thanks, Michael. Sorry about that. Folks, I did it rather quickly tonight, and I didn't throw in the link to call in. Let me paste that into the chat room. Boom, boom. There is the link to call into the show. If you want to call in, you should have either your camera ready or at least your microphone ready, and we'll bring you in. We can talk. And let's see. Matthew, if you know anything more about that trip to Spain, I've got just tidbits of that in my head. I'd love to have you call in and talk about that a little bit. Here is Jason Patrick. How you doing, Jason?
Doing good. How are you doing, Scotty?
I'm doing great. I'm great.
That's fantastic to hear.
It's fantastic. Yes.
I'm glad to hear that you're doing so well.
You kiss your mother with those lips.
No, but I did something to your mother last night with these.
With these. Oh, excellent. So how you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Nice. You got a tie. You got a vest on.
Yeah, well, actually, the vest and stuff just came in, and I threw it on to see how it would work, and then I just haven't taken it off because
it's funny. I was just looking at some vests today online, and I thought, oh, I should get a couple of those. I am really enjoying the look. That old you can call it Banana Republic, followed that look for a while, but the old adventurers look, the look of the old from post-Edwardian age into the age of exploration, you could call it. I like that kind of clothing, and a nice vest, a wool vest, a tie.
Yeah.
I love that look with the khakis and the boots and the nice shirt and vest and a fedora and
Oh, it's like it's like hunting clothing. You look at the older hunting clothing from back in the day with the window pane check plaids on the green tweeds and things like that. It's and breeches instead of regular pants, so you could have your tall field boots.
Breeches, so I could have my tall boots up to the knee. What?
Back when it was a general sport.
If you see some old pictures of John Ward and I, he wears this kind of light tan tweed, the window pane plaid, tweed jacket and vest, and he said, he says, that was made for me. And he looks around and he says, don't tell anybody. This was 10 years ago, so I think I can share it now. He says, that was made for me by Prince Charles's tailor, his personal tailor. And I said, well, aren't we princely? So he had some connections, and he had that made.
Apparently.
He was a real estate or an estate agent, not agent. What do they call them over there? Estate
solicitor.
Solicitor.
Basically, he sold homes, but he would sell big old castles and manor homes and stuff like that. And so he was a good, quite the estate Agent? I don't know if they call him agent. They call him something else. I might be wrong.
Highwayman. Oh wait, no, that's a
Teddy
different.
Roosevelt style. Yes, Elderberry.
Yeah, Robin Hood.
Well, Jason, I got to give you a couple of thumbs up
Loaded
on
the
the
book
vest.
tonight.
Say again.
Jesus, I've got to give you a
What are
couple
you
of
reading there, Michael?
thumbs up on the vest.
Thanks.
Vests are one of the things that I have always just really appreciated, enjoyed. I've got a real nice black leather one that you can only wear it on certain occasions or to certain places, but it just feels good, you know?
Yeah, it does. I mean, this is actually a vest for a 3-piece suit that came in today.
And
so
actually,
really,
I'm sorry if you have any amount of class at all. It's not a vest; it's a waistcoat.
well, but that's
Or
that's
waistcoat,
like,
as they say in.
but that's the thing, though, is
Nebraska.
a waistcoat and a vest are different. They're cut differently,
They are cut differently.
and
But they're referred to
waistcoats
as a waistcoat.
typically have
Lapels.
the lapels on them. Yeah. But and one of the other fashion faux pas that tends to end up happening nowadays, because the stuff just hasn't been passed on, is that you leave the bottom button undone on a vest.
Yes.
But if you're wearing a waistcoat, you can button the bottom button.
You know what I got in the habit of doing for years is I would button the bottom on the waistcoat, but then I would leave the top one or even two open, depending on the tie I had. And if you tie the proper, you put the proper dimple in the tie, and you let that tie flower out a bit and go down into you just crack open one of the buttons of the waistcoat, and you let that sit open there.
Well, what's your favorite knot, Scotty? When you tie a tie, do you do the Windsor knot or?
Yes, I do them all. I've used I didn't used to like them. They had in the 70s when I started wearing suits, seminary and Bible school and church and functions. 70s was the lapels that came out to here, on your coat, the big shirt collars, and the ties were always a full Windsor, which was a knot that looked about that big at your neck. And it's because you go around and here, talk about that for a second. I'm going to go grab a tie.
I was going to ask JP, do you remember your first dining in or dining out? I had a lady, she was a retired master sergeant, and she said, Michael, I was a young soldier. That's hard to believe because I'm still so young, right? Now it's like 35 years ago. And she told me, she said, you look like 50 pounds of shit crammed in like a 4-pound bag. But,
Oh, that's
and
nice.
All right. And I'm like, okay. So she said, and this woman, I had never tied a tie. Like I said, I grew up on a dirt farm. Hell, we didn't have ties, and
right.
And I remember,
Sarah.
And she, this woman, and she told me part of being a good NCO, even a female NCO, was knowing how to make sure your soldiers did not look fucked up out the door. And and I left that tie tied forever. Then I remember
while you're talking, I'm going to tie a full Windsor. You all just pay attention while you're talking.
I had to Google last time.
I'm going to start with a little less on this end because you're using up a lot of tie to do this. Full Windsor. You cross it.
So then on Christmas, she got me a black clip-on, and bought me the bow tie that I could just pop in. Yeah. There's no way in hell that I could tie a bow tie. Not even at 50 years old now. If I was about it, I'd probably pull it off. I can't.
Do that so far.
But I was going to ask Jason.
Around the front.
Prove it's a real tie. Prove it's a real tie, or not a clip-on.
And then down through. And you have an awfully short tie left because this was a short tie to begin with. But now the dimple right here is very important. I used to I would actually pinch a dimple into it like this, and then pull it tight.
Yeah.
And you pull it tight, and you pull this tight. And this is a little crooked on the dimple. But there's your dimple right there. That should be right down dead smack in the center. And then when you tighten that baby up, your collar comes down around. This is not the shirt for this, but your collar comes down around that. Another thing that I don't like that I see a pet peeve is guys who have a dress shirt on and they button it up and then they tighten their tie, but they don't tighten it up. I'm not
Like
talking
all
about
the way.
choking yourself. It's like hanging there or to the side. Or the
It's
collar goes
rebellious.
half over it. What you got to do,
Hey, Scott, you know what that lines up
tighten
with
that-
all the way
bring
down?
that up,
Gig line.
Yeah,
There it
I was
is.
going to say. I'm like, I don't know if the
and then you work it.
Frankfurt caught him at. And
Look at that. Look at that dimple. Then if you're wearing a waistcoat or a vest, make sure that thing's pulled up just a little bit. If you want to clip it, I usually don't wear a tie clip. You clip it underneath, and the waistcoat comes over the top of that, and you pull that up a little bit just to give it some give, and it's a good look. Now that's a full Windsor right there. That's a huge knot.
Yeah, that's too much. I like
That's
the
too much
smaller
now.
ones. I like
Now
I like it nice and tight and a nice thinner
narrower.
tie. Yeah, the narrow
I'll
is
wear the
looks-
four in hand knot.
but you got to
Right.
have the collar that comes out in the curve, right? And comes
Yes.
away from the tie. The ones that are big
here.
that are come down too tight,
Right.
that looks like, you didn't go to the right store, you didn't
Right.
get the right help.
Now, here's a
I
four
hate-
in hand.
I hate
you wearing
spread.
It's a lot simpler.
collar.
It gives you a taller, more elegant knot, but it sits a little cockeyed, so you got to work with it because it's only like it's kind of like a modified half Windsor. I just did the full Windsor. You cross this over once, come around the back and around the front,
Tonight on the captain's
up
cabin,
over
tie tying.
from the back, and down through. This has nothing to do with philosophy or anything, or history or anything. but-
Or does it? Or
does it?
does it?
And then now you do the same thing. I create the dimple,
I think I came onto the wrong channel tonight.
and you tighten.
What is this?
This
Don't
is
worry
how to tie a couple of different knots.
This is
in your tie.
just a gentlemanly discussion about gentlemanly things.
Oh, really?
Gentlemanly things. Oh, don't be a barbarian.
I thought Scotty
So-
was having a nervous breakdown there for a second.
Yes.
This is how
So
I
here,
do my tie. This
There
is
is
how I do my
there's
tie.
your foreign hand, and I would always pinch the foreign hand, and you spread out the dimple a little bit, so you have a knot that looks like that, tall, elegant. And there's several other knots, but those are the only two I normally wear. I'll do a half Windsor every now and then. It gives you almost the same as this, except it's a little wider.
Well, I've got a joke about a nice spread dimple, but I think I'll
I'm
pass.
sure you do.
Oh,
Now, when I was,
Oh
when I
yeah,
was
yeah,
just-
yeah. You were talking JP because you were wearing a waistcoat. It's not a. What were you calling it? A waistcoat?
a waistcoat.
No,
A waistcoat.
A
It's
waistcoat.
A west. It sounds like a musket. No, it's a waistcoat. It's not
That's
a waistcoat.
That's what people in
But
in
talking
Cleveland
about
call
one,
it a waistcoat.
I'm just back from a family function.
Yes.
I'm wearing my and
He's
it's
wearing
just
his waistcoat.
peculiar because I have my a leather waistcoat here, and every time I wear this because it's really comfortable and it has a shitload of pockets in it. And I can carry my cigarettes and my wallet and stuff like that, and
So it's a tactical waistcoat.
Yeah,
Technical, yes.
and it's really
Got
cool.
a built-in holster.
And it's,
Yeah.
but every time I have to go through the same routine with saying, "Where's your Harley Davidson? Where's your Harley Davidson?" I said, "Well, I just parked it around the corner because I don't want it to get stolen."
By the way,
it goes on.
by
and
the
on
way,
and on.
before I totally get off the tie thing,
Yeah.
I used to, when I was in seminary, I had a great job. I worked in probably the top-notch, classiest men's suit haberdashery in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Cedric's, it was called. This is where back in 1980 and 81, you were paying $2,500 for a Brioni Italian suit, or a
It's a
Corneliani.
Brioni.
And but when we were showing suits, I would lay suits out on the table for a client. I'd lay out a suit and I'd take a shirt that was still folded and I'd put it underneath, and you'd take the tie like this,
Yep.
and we'd always grab it. If we want to do it quickly, we just put it around our finger, and we just do one of these. We just go, hey, and this is what your tie, will look like with that. We do like a fake 4-in-hand. And if we were laying things out, if I knew I had a client coming in, I had a guy who was his father, he was a Arabic guy, and his father was in oil, is all he told me. Oh, father is in oil. And I went, oh, okay. Because he wanted to buy like 6 suits, and he's spending like $2,000 a piece on these suits. So I laid them all out ahead of time, and I'd get a bunch of ties and different shirts to go with them. We'd always take these things, and we just do a fake knot like this. And you pull it like that. Then we would take that and we'd tuck that up under the collar of the shirt, and we'd lay that out on the suit so people could see. So there you go.
I never knew you had that background.
I've
never heard you say that before.
That was a long time ago. That was 1980, 81.
Yeah, but it's never left you because you still have the same, mannerisms, and you still know how to do it. Yeah.
Je ne quoi.
That's certain. I don't know what. Je ne sais quoi. So
what did you say?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about ties.
I got my.
I can't tell you this though. Talking speaking to the professor's mention of collars earlier, and talking about the rounded sweeping up kind of the early 1920s, 1910s type collar. The collar I hate. The collar I cannot stand, and every time I see one, I want to throat punch the wearer. And every men's suit store that I go into, and that's all they have is the spread collar.
Yep, I hate those.
It's like almost creates like a 4-inch gap.
Yes,
between it shows off the knot beautifully, but
sure does. But it also shows off the tie part too.
Right?
You don't show any of that.
It's just this big spread, and it's horrible. Give me a good spear point. I want the knot to lift that up a little bit, and I want it to be an accent.
Okay, and what about buttons on the collar?
That all depends. If you're working stiff in an office, or the CEO.
Where it's nice, where it's pulled down nice and tight. You've got a nice button collar. What are your thoughts there?
Well, so I don't like buttons that go through the collar. I like the ones that have the tab on the back of the collar, so it stays nice, very clean looking.
I will tell you, I do like a sweet, stiff-looking collar. I always, when I worked in clothing, and then I went into advertising.
Just on the gay men's channel talking about fashion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When I went into advertising, I would send my shirts out. I'd wear a shirt every day to the office, or a suit and tie every day to the office with bracers and tie and all that, and I sent my shirts out. I'd send 10 shirts a week out to the dry cleaners, and I'd say, I want them back on hangers. I said, light starch on the body, heavy starch on the collars and the cuffs.
Yep.
And but I also liked the back button tab on the collar, so it would hold it stiff and clean and slick and tight around that knot. Or, and this is a very 90s thing. I haven't worn one since the 90s. I did like the ties that had the bar that would clip behind.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
nice.
that would lift
gold
the
bar
knot
that you would put back there.
The tie bar, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are hard to find nowadays.
Yeah.
So how about you, Niall? What kind of shirts do you wear?
I wear band T-shirts.
That's right.
I was unfortunate. I didn't really have the money to buy all these fabulous shirts.
Yes.
But
Fabulous.
I spent my
And they were
entire
fabulous.
youth just dreaming of this perfect outfit that I would be able to sweep in and just look so sophisticated and wonderful.
That's right.
Okay, so next question is, what about shirts under the shirts?
Cotton. Number one, cotton.
What do you go there?
Yeah,
I'm all cotton. We talked about the collars.
Crew necks. I hate a V-neck.
I like a cufflink, but I didn't always wear a cufflink. I wore a button shirt, but there's a rule of thumb about the sleeve on your suit coat. The sleeve on your suit coat, when we would measure guys, when we'd have them stand, the sleeve on the suit coat should fall no further than that area right there.
Yeah,
where
I
your
think it's
thumb
about
meets your
about an
wrist.
inch, isn't it, Scotty?
like
It's about
that.
an inch.
Because when
you
you
can
want
show
to
an inch
show-
of your shirt, and
you have to show linen.
yeah,
We called it showing linen. And
Yeah.
so when you put your arm up, you got that little bit of linen sticking up
Mm.
there, and the same with
Beautiful cuff link.
Yep, or the cufflink.
So
But if you-
speaking of showing linen, let's move to the next major piece: boxers or briefs.
Yes. No.
I'm getting ready to change y'all's life. I found these. They're called ball cooling technology. They're
Seen
$22 for 3 pair. But if you got $2 Dickie, put it in Hanes. If you got premium cock, put it in $22 pair of underwear. All right. I had test drove these things. I love them. I will never go back to another pair of regular boxers again. Never.
I don't believe this conversation, but I will jump in here.
It's an important one.
if I could.
Ball comfort is nothing to laugh about.
Boxers and briefs, right? Boxers are great for men because they're roomy, and they
breathe.
They
breathe,
you get some airflow around the areas
Yes.
Where you need it.
genitalia. But at the same time, I notice about boxers, when you sit down at certain times, you get this, oh Jesus.
Yep.
You mean when you sit on your balls?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas with briefs, everything is tucked in and it's nice and tight, except especially as you get older, you kind of feel, I shouldn't really be wearing these. And it's not for the reason that you think. It's just like everything is kind of tucked in, and you're not going to sit on your balls.
Yes.
With boxers, you do that all the time, and it really annoys me. So Jesus,
what
Christ.
I like the.
Does
crop
anybody agree with me? By the way,
I agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like boxers if I'm like walking around the house or going to go to bed, sleeping.
Yeah,
They're great.
absolutely.
But I wear traditionally when I wear underwear, I wear, and I don't always go without underwear, but when I do, I don't always wear underwear, but when I do, I wear boxer briefs, which are, I've mistaken my boxer briefs at times past when I was a bicyclist and I would go out and bike 12, 13 miles a day. One day I was out and I was biking and I had black biker shorts, biker shorts that come down almost to the knee, but they're skin tight. And that's almost the way my boxer briefs were built. And I'm standing at a stoplight and I'm getting my breath. I'm in traffic and I look down, I go, I'm in my fucking underwear. I had a black pair of boxer briefs on and I went out biking 12 miles in boxer briefs. And so, but
here's where it's at. Here's where it's at.
Where's it at?
So go on Amazon. There's a company called Real Men. It's
Real
like
Men.
one word, Real Men, and they do.
Are these the guys who sell the razors to shave your balls? Same company, I presume.
No.
Company.
That's Manscaped. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they are.
There it is.
Yep. Well, that's the brief style, but they have a boxer brief. It's pouched. It lifts everything up so you don't sit on it, Niall, and then everything breathes still, and that's where it's at. There
you go.
There you go.
And then there's the argument. Then
Michael's got them bookmarked.
Then there's the argument.
Add the cart. You know what I'm saying?
Then there's the argument
$52 a pair. Jesus Christ.
About buttons in the front of your briefs. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, they're useless because what happens is they all pop open and your penis falls out. Anyway, so what is the point?
It makes that noise too when it falls out.
But then again, if you get caught out and you have to go to the bathroom really quickly, you have to pull this thing down, to get everything out to go and urinate. So I'm trying to keep this as clean as I can. Given
you're good. You're good.
We're having a gay conversation.
You're killing it now. You're killing it.
Yeah. But I think that I remember I was watching daytime TV as I usually do because my life is just so meaningless. And there was a guy on one day talking about this, and he was like, we can't men, we don't like the buttons down the front of our briefs because we have to unbutton them, and sometimes they pop open, and your penis can fall out, and and it's totally ridiculous. So we're selling a product, and this guy was selling his briefs, is much like the ones that JP just put up on screen. We took you up, but and I was thinking, all you have to do is just pull it down, and off you go, and and I was thinking that sounds great, but practically, I can't see it happening for every man. Like, some men just want to go into the toilet. Say if you're in a bar, for example, you want to go into the toilet and just zip, off you go. You don't need to do this whole thing. We have to unbutton your pants and
tuck
pull this thing down, and and then pull it back up, and they were saying, and his argument was, though, men don't want these buttons.
Go through all that shit.
Yeah. They just want to pull out. They just want to pull down their pants and just pull out.
Just want to go.
Just want to go.
It's gotta be.
So this whole thing about buttons down the front of your briefs. That's a real problem. That's a real problem for some men.
It is. And I think now needs the nickname of Mr. Mary Mac with
Mr.
buttons
Mary Mac, yes.
all down.
Well, I'll tell you, I get these boxer briefs, but they all have a fly. The flap fly that you.
Not the flap thing. Yeah.
And you gotta, so you get unzip and
you mean the one that you have to look for?
And the first time I ever tried on a pair of first time I ever got a pair of boxer briefs that did not have a fly, I didn't really look at the packaging, and I put those on and I went, well, those don't have a fly. That should be okay. They're comfortable. And man, I got to tell you, when I had to pee, you walk into a public urinal and you go, and you get that zipper down just in time, and you're like, oh my God, I've got a layer I can't get through here.
Yeah.
And you've got to unbutton, hike them down a little bit, and yank down the boxer brief so you can pee. And if you haven't pissed your pants by then, you're lucky. So,
exactly.
Or you're
It's
young.
an exercise in crisis management, Robert.
It is.
You better be wearing black. That's why I wear black all the time, because
that's right.
If the worst comes to the worst, it's
speaking of that, and
you can get away with it.
I saw John. Where was he? Cynical. He said depends. That brings up. It just makes me think of something. Do you remember? It was a few years back. The ad, and it's geared at guys that are out of middle age. You're older. You're kind of like my age. And any guy my age knows it's not as easy holding your water as it was when you were 26. Okay? And sometimes you got to go more often. I got a buddy of mine who's a fellow artist. He's in his early 50s now. And he was saying, one thing about my early 50s is I notice I pee a lot more. And more and more and more, and it just doesn't stop. Well, okay. Now, having said all that,
I'll give you an example.
I saw an ad. It's got
I'm 56, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I have to go in the middle of a conversation. Excuse me. Yeah. That's how bad it can get at times.
Here, I do this. I go, hey, you guys talk for a minute.
Yeah.
See, and I saw this ad on TV. And it had a very Sam Elliott looking guy, Sam Elliott guy with big mustache and talks like that. I don't have the kind of voice he has, but he's like,
he's got more of a southern thing.
When you're out riding, and it's got a guy that looks like him, his age, on a motorcycle. Potato, Harley. And he's out with the gang, He's got his leather colors on, and it shows him in tight jeans. He's got his feet up, and he's riding down the road. When you're out riding, and you gotta go, and it said, and it was an ad for men's pads that you put in your underwear. So if you have leakage because you can't make it in time, you're protecting your jeans from an embarrassing stain.
I am. I'm reminded of.
Was there actually a television ad about those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very tasteful, but it was, I just laughed through it because it's like they got to have a Harley guy to sell their pads.
I'm reminded of an event that took place, oh gosh, probably at least 10 years ago at this point, of the astronaut that went apeshit and drove cross country.
Yes.
Wearing depends. Yeah.
Wearing depends.
Yep.
Oh, did Sarah leave?
Sarah left.
All right. I think I've learned I wish to know about this particular topic niche. I'm going to bed. Sarah, get your little butt back in here.
Okay,
You call in.
Sometimes sometimes you just have to have a bit of fun.
Come on.
We're just having a bit of fun.
Yeah, we're just having fun.
Just taking a piss out of him. That's all.
Oh, Jason.
I mean, we can talk about Jesus and the end of the world and the apocalypse, and
we talk about that stuff that we're blue in the face every day.
Exactly.
Hey, when the horns blow, there's going to be a lot of people wetting their pants.
Sometimes you just need to talk about underwear. You just need
underwear, ties.
Yes.
That's
Well, let's go ahead and move down to the socks. Do we do knee high? Do we do ankle? Do we do mid calf?
That depends on your blood circulation.
Depends on what you're wearing.
Yeah, exactly.
It does depend on what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Look, if you're mowing the lawn, all right, in summer,
They got to be black
probably
knee
have.
highs.
They've got to be mid calf at least, and you have to be wearing
handle.
Tevas and shorts and complaining about how about this heat.
Yeah.
What was the big tube socks? That's probably what the professor's mowing the grass in. He's got the big white tube socks with like the green and blue and red stripes around the
Yeah,
top.
hell yeah.
I had those back in the 80s and 90s, and I had my New Balance tennis shoes, and I'd go run around in that. But I tell you, I've got to the point now. I'm 66. I haven't worn a pair of socks all year.
Your shoes must generate interesting odors at people's houses when you take them off.
I don't go to people's houses.
That's the time when I go stockless, I invariably end up at somebody's house
Robert,
where they ask you to take off your shoes at the door, and it's like, geez.
no.
I have not had my pedicure this month, so
Paint's curling off the wall.
yeah. I'm not wearing socks now, and I may not again tomorrow.
Yeah,
But no, I don't always wear socks, and I like barefoot. In the summertime, warm weather, I'd always wear khaki pants. I'd roll up my pant legs, no socks or shoes, and that's the way I was all day. I'd roll them up a couple of, like cuffs at the bottom and walk around that way.
I remember last summer I was wearing sandals and flip flops a lot, and I know first Wendy, she said, "You got your Jesus creepers on your feet, Michael. Them are not not attractive footwear for men. You're looking old. Them are grandpa sandals." I was like, "Well, goddamn, they're comfortable." They're easy.
I want a sandal that looks like a Roman sandal.
Oh yeah, hoplite sandals or centurions. Yeah, there you go.
Jerusalem cruisers. Yeah,
well,
there you are.
You're only one step away from a skirt. Then you just
Well,
then you have a pleated skirt, and you just put on the breastplate, and you're a Roman.
Now, by the way,
and
back when I was in the 90s, when I was doing a lot of dressing up for advertising, late 80s, the early 90s,
I thought you were going to say
they wore shoes that the shoes were very low cut. Those who were almost like, I've talked about this once before, almost like opera pumps, but they were dress shoes for men. You could get a pair of Kenneth Cole men's opera pump dress shoes for like $350.
yes.
Oh my God. But we'd wear those, and they were cut low for a reason. Because with your suits, you have the low cut V on the suits in the 90s with the colorful ties, and your socks didn't have to match your tie. But it had to coordinate, and you showed off your socks. So you'd have your pant cuffs would generally always cover your socks. This is back when you put a cuff on the bottom of your dress pants too. But when you sat down and your knee comes up a little bit and your socks show off, people need to see your bold colors. I mean, you could wear everything from a British flag or an American flag or an Irish flag to, a nice paisley that goes with the pocket silk you've got over in this pocket, you know,
Oh,
and, things like that.
It was a great name for them. What is it? It's a pocket square, right? Your pocket square. Yeah.
If it's square,
Yeah.
we always call them pocket silks.
Yeah, just a handkerchief.
But you know what I like for a pocket square? Here, I've just got a regular old napkin here.
I was going to tell you that this is my Long John look right here.
Pocket square or a pocket silk. I love it when you put it in the pocket, and this is all you see is. I love and I got this. I always called it the Perry Mason look because he had. You look at the old Perry Mason shows. He always had the white kerchief that was just like a half an inch that would come out of the top pocket. That was class. And then, of course, I learned when I was at the clothing store, you know, you did this kind of thing, which I do this a lot even now. You take it in the middle and you pinch it and you pull it up and you've got something that looks kind of like that. And that stuff's in your pocket.
A little origami.
Yeah, kind of. Well, it's just the four corners of the thing. Or you can do it the other way and just do it upside down and puff it out that way, and you've got a little dimpled thing that'll stick out.
I wouldn't go out.
You can do whatever you want.
Wouldn't go out with that thing in my upper pocket if my life depended on it. But you know, different strokes for different folks.
Oh, what, a kerchief?
Yeah, I mean, jeepers. Yeah.
The whole idea of
not the one that looks like a flower. I mean,
yeah.
Well,
the whole idea of a handkerchief blowing.
You might as well come in. You might as well come in and go, "Hiya." I mean, it's totally ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea of a handkerchief blowing snot into a piece of cloth and stick it in your pocket.
Yeah.
I don't know who came up with that shit.
What old farmer came up with that idea? Well, here. Oh, Sonny, you got a little drool there. Let me get my hanky out and wipe that off. No, thanks, Grandpa. I got it.
That's that's like watching the great uncles go out and they've been working in the field and they'd have an apple or whatever with their lunch and they'd get out their pocket knife and they'd cut off a slice of the apple and they'd eat, work their way through this apple. Meanwhile, just 20 minutes earlier, they were cutting strings on a manure spreader with the same knife.
With the same knife.
Fingernail, yeah.
By the way, JP, I meant to ask you. I think I missed this. Why are you dressed up anyway?
No reason in particular. I had ordered a suit. It had come in. I tried on the suit and the vest, and I put it with shirt, trying to see what would work. And I just haven't taken off the vest and shirt.
You look good. You look good, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You remind me a little bit of Ricky Gervais. He's big over there in the States, isn't he? He looks a bit like Ricky Gervais.
He's not in as good a shape as Jason. But
I'm not in that great a shape. Rounds of shape.
What about bracers? Or as we used to call them, your grandpa would call them suspenders because he used to hold his pants up.
But bracers hold your pants up. Suspenders hold your socks up.
Yes.
Oh, there's that. Yes. No, I never wore sock suspenders.
Well, isn't that like a garter belt for a woman?
Kind of.
Yeah, basically. It's a manly garter belt.
What do you connect the suspenders to? Your underwear? Where do they connect?
So there's different methods of them. You have some that actually go on your leg, right?
Yeah.
That have basically like garter straps, and they go to your socks.
Calf.
You mean like a holster?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Like you're keeping your little 33 down there.
Right, like a calf holster. Sure, yeah. And then they have ones that are like shirt stays that will clip to the tails of the shirt, and it will run down the length of the trouser to your socks.
Supposedly,
God, that would drive me out of my mind.
Your shirt, nice and.
I'd be terrified of it snapping off at the foot end. But
dude. Ooh. And not only do you lose a nut, but you've got your sock dangling around.
Now your sock's hanging out, and you're looking like an asshole, and you're sitting there dying. It's just nothing but lack of dignity.
I remember during the 80s, right? When I was kind of really in my fashionable prime, but braces, were a big thing. And actually, they were really cool because you could buy a pair of pants that were maybe a bit big for you, or maybe a bit small for you, or whatever it was. You could just, these braces were like, the thing. And all men used to wear these braces in the 80s, at least in this country. So braces were the thing. So, just stick on, a pair of trousers that are 2 sizes too big and you just wear your braces.
And you look like a clown.
And yeah, well, you would think so. But we used to wear braces with cargo pants or combats or something like that.
Yes.
But we'd wear braces, and it was just a thing for a while,
Yeah.
An idea. It was during the 80s, yeah.
Well, the whole men's style of the 20s and 30s was just dapper. It was Swave, it was DeBoner, it was, it just
I like
it was
dapper.
so classy.
It was what, Professor?
Swave and DeBoner.
Yes.
Debonair, or did he mean to say DeBoner? Yeah.
Yes.
They got me when I'm a dapper Dan.
Yeah.
I'm a dapper man.
I've had people say,
meant to
"My,
say
you look what they tell me, you look dandy." And I say, "Yes, I may look
like a dandy."
I'm not a dandy,
Yeah.
but I may.
I
look
always
dandy.
look at the footage of the 30s, the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Mm.
I mean, these guys must have been up since like dawn, shaving and moisturizing and slipping their hair back and putting the perfect suit on, and every day, I mean, just to go to the store or go to work, I mean, can you imagine as a man, getting up every day and doing this,
Yeah. Basically,
Well,
had to do that in the military. I mean,
yeah, but you got to remember back then they didn't have all the extra shit to do that we do today. So
I use
actually
a regular
part of-
safety razor.
That was part of their daily activity. It gave them something to do. I mean, all they had to do was get dressed and then find the horse or the carriage or the Model T and then mosey on down to whatever shop they were at.
Yeah,
we wake up today and we've
shave,
got
they
this
shave so closely. They had the perfect shave.
Well, yeah,
perfect haircut, the perfect grill cream. Everything was perfect, and with a side parting. I mean, Jesus,
Yes.
it had to. That whole thing of getting up in the morning must have taken at least
the
an
thing
hour.
though. Once you actually have everything down and you have your habits and your mannerisms of doing everything,
routine,
muscle memory like that.
Muscle memory.
I mean, it just goes. You walk in, you get everything done up, and then all right, cool, and off you go.
All things come around, and eventually you say to yourself, fuck it, Jesus was right. Long hair and a beard.
There it is. Yes.
But you know what, Scotty? I am teaching my 2 sons how to shave with a traditional straight razor. Everybody's like,
oh yeah.
And everybody's like, Michael, that's dangerous. I said, when they get tired of cutting themselves, they will learn.
Yes.
But you ask JP, have you ever suffered through them? You talking about the shoes? Have you ever suffered through the most uncomfortable pair of black dress shoes that the Army ever give you? the first thing that you oh yeah, them things is horrific. They're like vinyl and they don't bend right, and they're god awful, cut into the bottom of your ankle. They're just whatever. So, but like I said, the dapper stuff, the dapper Dan, the flop, and all that. Them guys,
Dapper
even
Dan.
gangsters, the gangsters dressed like that. When they went out, they was a showpiece. The women they had on their arm, they called them flappers or whatever. It was a whole scene. And at Fort Lee, before they renamed it, they used to have what they call the Pimps and Hoes Club. Everybody dressed with the feathers and the bolos, and they'd pull up in the old 32 coupes and stuff. And everybody's like, Michael, what are you doing? I'm like, God damn, it's took them forever to get this ensemble together.
Ensemble.
Oh, yeah, and, that's the big part. I know at 12 o'clock, but like they did, they had pride in their appearance. People don't have pride in their appearance no more.
Yeah. Now they go to Walmart and
I
they're
don't know about that.
pajamas.
Based on the LGBTQIEIEIO, there's a lot of pride going on over there.
Yeah.
I have to bring you up on something, Robert.
Yes.
My daughter's a lesbian, okay?
Mine too. Congratulations.
Yeah. And I think that it's kind of insulting.
My ex-wife is too.
And she's very proud of it. She signs for the deaf at rallies and stuff like that, and I'm very proud of her. And just sometimes, you don't really know who you're talking to, so
Sure.
that shows. You brought it up in the last show as well, and this one too. So I'm just saying, just be a little respectful.
Well, I if somebody's offended by that kind of terms and
no,
and
it's
no
it's more
derogatory
your
thing-
EIO.
Well, there is. I mean, tell me what the latest letter
No,
is.
but that's heavy sarcasm.
Well, it's sarcasm because it needs to be mocked. They don't even get along amongst themselves. You can't
I don't mock
get
the people,
alphabet.
but I do mock the monikers sometimes.
Yeah, the whole thing is, there's every month there's a new letter added, and none of us know what the hell it means.
Neither do they, but that's not the point.
Well,
The
that
point
is the point. That is
isn't.
that's part of the problem that we have in our society. We have people that are redefining entirely new category, redefining existing and creating entirely new categories of ideologies and identities. And they are expecting respect for that. And you sit there and you go, well, I don't even know what the hell that means.
Well,
I understand exactly where Niall's coming from.
Can I
but
just
I also understand
answer
the
that?
political point.
I do think that Robert, should be careful with what he just spouts out at times, because I think that, believe it or not, there are people who, it's lesbian, gay, bisexual.
Hey, I'm
queer,
a lesbian.
I mean, queer is. I always thought queer was gay, but queer means a straight man who has homoerotic tendencies, whatever, right? And all the other extra letters.
I think Queer Eye for the Straight Guy show would disagree with that. It was for gay guys that would show a straight guy how to do his hair.
Yeah, but I think that it is a real thing. It's not something to be mocked or say, oh my God, these people are just nuts. They add another letter onto it. I know. It's a bit. I did discuss this with my daughter sometimes, and she's like, I know, but that's, sometimes we get together, and sometimes the more people think about it, they want to add another letter onto it to extend an influence or extend a point of view. But my point is that don't make fun of it. Don't sort of say just because it's a lot of letters followed by a lot of letters.
I'm okay. I'll say this, Niall.
It comes across as kind of.
Niall, I'll say this: it's like a comedian
and
will tell you. A comedian will tell you the worst kind of person is one that can't take a jibe. Comedy is meant to be offensive. If you didn't offend anybody with comedy would be worthless.
Yeah,
but it's not meant to be offensive on a level of let's start a little war. It's meant to be offensive on a level of that's really queer. That's really dumb. Or
that's
really
all I want to say.
Or something like that. Yeah,
big deal,
I get the point you're making.
2 nights in a row, so I was like, come on.
Yeah, I get the point you're making.
In the 20s, in the 20s, if somebody told you they had a long gay day, that meant they had a really happy day.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a different different topic. That's
offense,
language and the way we've changed language. The way we are trying to manipulate society to go along with whatever my particular letter is or my particular pronoun is. It's like, I don't really give a flying fuck what your pronoun is or what your letter is. However, I'll be sensitive. You're an adult. You can call yourself anything you want. But if you try to impose that on society or impose that on me, it ain't going to work. If you're going to tell me, you call me they or whatever. I've had some places where I had to fill out forms or applications and they ask what my pronouns are. And I always put dude and Batman. I said, those are my pronouns. And I never get those jobs for
really.
some
Do you actually have forms that those?
Yeah, when you're filling out,
we've got them all over the fucking place.
Now they say it's optional, but when you're filling out an application, I fill out resumes all the time. or send my resume off all the time. Then they send you an app. Will you fill out this app? Sure. And you look at it and it's got that section in it. You know, what are your personal pronouns? And I'm like, oh, Jesus, are you serious?
God. The best one I told them, they said, what do you identify?
Well, apparently, but I'm sorry, Robert, by the way. I didn't mean to attack you about that.
No, I took none taken.
But it's a perfect segue into transhumanism.
Which is right where we were going.
Yeah.
But I was going to tell them all this. My daughter, like I said, I have actually marched into parade with her, and there is a lot of things that I do worry about for my daughter. She's 31, 32. But even her here in America, she said, Daddy, they have hijacked our thing, where used to hang out, because, the Johnson City is known for their community. I don't even know how to pronounce it nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to be offensive to her because I love my daughter, and and I have her back. But she told me she said, but it has, and she'll tell me, she said, and if you come out that you're a conservative lesbian, they try to eat their own now. Oh, you can't vote for that man. He's a fascist.
Sure, I can.
And she told him, she said, not only am I lesbian, she said, but my daddy taught me how to fire a 45 ACP. Because she didn't anything twice as stupid. And what's funny about her now, she will tell my two sons, which are both over 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. She said, I'm the best son my dad ever had. She said, y'all two are a disappointment. Because she's 5'5" and petite, and she would fight a mountain lion. But actually, she said that and I've heard her say the same thing Professor Bauer said about the whole EIEO shit. She said it has got fucking stupid and ridiculous.
Of course,
they have. And she said they have brought in so much other bullshit that what it was originally started to protect or have their own little thing that they could get together, because there's, protection in numbers. She said they have hijacked our movement, and it has got idiotic.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It was just the day. It was just the way Robert said it.
Well, I was trying to be. I was trying to be.
That's all. That's all.
Yeah, I understand.
I agree that it's over the top.
Well, Niall, but here's the thing. And by the way, I take no offense. I was trying to be somewhat sarcastic and humorous in that because I've used that many times, and 99% of the time, people they start laughing. They go, "Yeah, I hear you." I'm trying to, sort it out myself. But here's the thing that and this is, it doesn't matter if it's gender or if it's race or whatever the identity that one has been given and adopted and put into a classification. At the end of the day, it's all about respect. And respect is not automatically given, it's earned. And you get respect by being respectful to other people. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems that's happened, everything's been weaponized, all of these different categories and all these different identities and all these different subjects and topics. But one of the things that you will see in an ideology and an identity that immediately starts throwing up red flags is exactly what Scotty was talking about. It's when they say, you must respect my identity and what I want to be called and who I identify as and all that. And when they can't even explain it to you.
And it's not even for me on a personal level.
Yeah.
It's when it's made to be something that they want society to do.
Well, that's where I was going.
Come on.
It's activist and it's aggressive. And you go, look, right now across it, particularly United States, being an old white guy is one of the worst things you can be.
Yeah.
It is free. It is open season on us old white guys. Because you're white, you got white privilege, you're male, you're old, you're from that old school of, that patriarchy crap.
I haven't had that experience.
And I am going full faceplant into that shit because every time you challenge somebody with why do they think that way, what are the issues, the rules, and all these other new things they've come up with that I must adhere to, it all falls apart. And you have to be.
Yeah,
but you can't just sit back and let it wash over.
It's early days. You see, it's early days for this community. All right. Now, let me explain what I mean by My daughter is heavily involved in this community, but half the time they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Of course they don't. They're trying to figure things out. But what I like about them is their enthusiasm and their kindness for each other and how they feel. Okay? You don't have to get up in front of Congress and give a big fucking speech about it, you know, but
Truth.
there is something going on here, right? And there is something that we have to pay attention to, because none of these people talk about their sexuality or their sexual role as a primal force in their lives, right? So it's not about, this is my role, this is your role, this is where we stand, this is where you stand. In other words, the gender balance is kind of just thrown out on the table. And there's and I've met so many of them. My daughter's friends are just the most intelligent and respectful. You mentioned respect, Robert.
Yeah.
The most respectful and kindest people and gentlest people you could ever meet in your entire life, and they don't want to dictate to anybody except to say, just let me be who I am. But most of them are young people. My daughter's 27, right? Most of them are in their 20s, right? So they're still trying to work out all the diplomacy and the letters and all the kinds of, and I've talked to them about this because, Jesus Christ, I agree with them, to a certain extent that this gender balance thing drives me crazy. It always has. I've never known whether I was straight, gay, bisexual, or asexual, or who cares? And that's the point. And
well, the problem, Niall, is that they don't know either, but they want people to accept and demand the acceptance of their unknownness.
No, society.
They don't know.
Society has decided to adopt that because it's the woke world we're living in, right?
Well, then they should tell these people to fuck off and leave them alone.
Well, it's too big now. It's in all the movies. I mean, Jesus, it's in all the advertisements.
Well, that's because entertainment helps
you can't
push this.
Look on any advertisement on TV. You have to have a fucking mixed race couple. You can't have a black couple. You can't have a white couple. You have to have a mixed race couple with an Asian child. I mean, how does that work? It isn't the LGBTQ's problem, or it just blown up out of it, and all they want is just to be understood, and so it isn't like they're they don't run the Hollywood or the major movie networks or the advertising company. I mean, you guys, seriously, look around you. Everything is like, oh, we can't say this. We can't do this. I was watching that movie, that comedy, but the four white guys in Las Vegas, and one of them went missing. What's the name of it?
The Hangover.
Yeah, The Hangover. Yeah, you couldn't have four white guys these days. It would have to be a black guy, a white guy, an Asian guy, and
they had an Asian guy.
Yeah, maybe a fucking but Native American or something like that. So that isn't the problem of the community. That is the whole world going nuts and saying, oh, Jesus, we have to keep these people happy. We better do something about this. Oh, my God, because they'll go crazy. And that isn't entirely the truth. They've taken that and they've just made a kind of a ridiculousness. I mean, you have now Lord of the Rings remakes. You have Black Dwarfs, even though they've lived underground all their lives.
Star Wars has been infected. Marvel's been infected. Hollywood's been infected.
Yeah.
And the question I've got for you now, and I know
that isn't the community.
Yeah, I know you're saying
there's a
difference. I know you're saying there's a difference between the community, meaning the individuals, and then the societal part of it. But the question is, why? How did it get here? Where is this? Is there all of a sudden a whole bunch of people being born that are questioning their gender? Did that all of a sudden come out of nowhere?
No,
This whole thing about being bisexual, which is really all it is in the end of the day, and you either prefer one sex or the other, that's been around in our history for millennia. And it has, in different cultures, either been accepted or completely shut out. I mean, you try being gay over in a Muslim environment and, have a nice day. It's over.
Yeah.
You have,
I think what
you have,
it become trendy to be trans. It become trendy to be gay. And now with everything connected, so, with the web and everything, it's like the TikTok challenge when everybody's dumping ice buckets over their head. Who the fuck wants to get dumped with cold ice water? It sucks.
Well,
but it's trendy. But Niall brought up a thing, and he said they feel like. I don't know how it is in Ireland, but when I was growing up, I'm 51. I don't know how old Niall is. But you know what my parents would have told me, and my grandparents would have told me. JP's probably would have told him the same. And it even happened when he was in the army. They had an old saying that said, "Fuck your feelings." So when they tell me they feel, they say, "Oh, I feel I should," or "I feel like this." When I was growing up, I was 30 years old, grown in the army, and I would still speak up on the farm. They'd be look at me like, "We don't give a shit." We're 50, 60, 80 years old. But, well, I feel like we need to upgrade this. They basically tell you to fuck off. Your feelings and what you thought did not. But I think the reason it has gained so much traction is everybody is so interconnected with their phones, with their laptops. The whole world is networked together. And that's what
actually Mike brings up a really great point, and I've been super quiet on this topic.
All right.
One, as a father of a kid who identifies as trans, there does get a point where the EIEIO yada 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 gets long in the tooth. All right.
Sure.
So, but the interconnectedness and the
did we lose you?
No, I am trying to better formulate where I was trying to go.
Okay.
With this,
he's trying to clean it up and play nice. You better take another swig of that Jameson, son.
He's either going to call me an asshole or Robert an asshole. I can't
no,
decide which.
no. Here's one of the things that I do think that it would be good to kind of take a step back. And what does it really matter? What it really, truly, honestly, at the end of the day, what does it really matter?
It depends on the context.
If you have people who are decent people, are good people, who cares what they're doing in their personal life, what they're doing in their bedrooms, what they're doing in their circles. I understand the frustration at having things feel like it's thrust upon you, and this kind of goes into what Mike made me think about, being so interconnected. If you look at the numbers and you look at the population, right? We'll just use the states, okay? With what, 300 and what is it?
350 million.
50 million. We've gone up to 50 million people. All right. The amount of people who identify as trans, as cats, dogs, whatever. Okay. It is minuscule. It is a literal drop in the bucket. You are talking about a statistical rounding error, right?
About 0.3%.
We are so interconnected, and we are so fed things, and there are so many algorithms with things that you turn on the TV and you are bombarded with it, right? You're bombarded with a topic that only covers this much of society,
I agree.
versus this. So it appears to be vastly
larger than it
actually is.
Yes.
Which answers your question, JP. What does it really matter? It matters because it's become a mental virus that
Right.
we all have to deal with, because the noisy few are making this
But
incredible
it is
interruption in the continuum.
the noisy few are making that interruption. But here's the thing, though, is people give them a platform by turning on the news.
All right.
They do.
Well, everything else is the same way, yeah.
And it's the squeaky wheel. It's not the people out there who are just like the regular people trying to live their lives in peace, be good to one another, be productive members of society, just want to be left alone and treated like anyone else.
Sure.
It's the people who are overblown about things. Like,
well, and it comes through this news feed, and a perfect experiment is turn on the news and just flip through and spend 5 minutes on each of the major legacy media news feeds, and then go outside.
Right.
You won't see any of the shit that you were just told when you go outside.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I don't pay attention to the news when it comes to things like with Israel and the Palestinians and Hamas. Because what you are told and what you are fed by the mainstream media, 8,000% of those people sitting on those screens, those pundits, those whatever, all right, they have never been in a combat zone. They've never been within 100 feet of a JDAM. They've never had to, mess with plastic explosives. They never had to do a controlled det. They've never had to clear a building. They've never had to conduct urban warfare. They've never had to do any of these things. And yet these things are given to us as gospel. They've never dealt with terrorist extremists. They've never dealt with guerrilla warfare. There are so many things that are not shown, and the things that are shown by idiots, experiential idiots, and in as much doing that, they're being ethical idiots as well.
But see, that's part of the problem.
You can't pay attention to that stuff. You have to go out and see what's actually really out there.
The problem is the only reason that stuff is the prevalent content on the legacy media is because there are exactly the people that you're talking about. There's more of them doing that than people like us doing this. It's a consumption-based thing.
It's on either side of the aisle, though.
Yeah.
Both sides of the aisle, when it comes to all the legacy media and getting your news, are both
it's
myopic morons.
It's propaganda anymore. And years ago, an old guy told me when newspapers was still a thing, I asked him, I said, why don't you write about the little boy with the lemonade stand or the Girl Scouts selling cookies? He said, well, goddamn, he said we'd go broke.
If it leads, it leads.
Niall, you were going to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the middle of all this.
Sorry.
I know this is a deep topic, and
that's what she said.
One thing I've learned is that from my daughter and her friends and the community is that it's not really about sexual preference anymore. It's not about, well, I'm gay, so I want to be crude, to have sex with a man.
Right.
It's a great question, Dora.
It's not about a lesbian. I want to have, strap on a dildo and have sex with a woman. This is not the message I'm getting.
Right.
It's not the message I'm getting.
No, we all suddenly feel uncomfortable.
No, it's about a confusion of the gender.
The message is
they have.
It's not about sexual preference. It's about, if anything, it's about a lack of sexual preference. Okay, if that makes sense. What they are saying is, and what I understand, is that they are not saying that we want to have sex with this, but we don't want to have sex with that. It's not about sex.
No, it's about gender. It's about
It's about
It's about whether you have a masculine tendency
or
a feminine tendency.
It's all about sexuality. I mean, the act of sex, right? The act of sex.
That's not what I'm seeing.
All right. Well, just let me finish.
Here, let him make this point.
Yeah.
The act of sex is not what they're talking about. The act of sex is irrelevant.
It's about gender.
It's about how sexual communion is really not that important.
That's kind of what Dara just said. By the way, Dara, let me welcome her to the show. I don't know if I've seen you here before, but I know you on my Facebook page. So go ahead, Niall. Sorry.
Sexual communion and procreation, is kind of irrelevant to this community. And given the population of the world at this stage, and given the gentleness of these people, and given the fact that they just want to be themselves with a community that they can gather with
all by itself,
and is an extremely beautiful thing. And all these people are highly intelligent. They have degrees up the wazoo, and PhDs coming out everywhere. So these people are saying to themselves, the nuclear family, which, our generation, right? We're all around the same age group, give or take a few years. Forget about it, the full-blooded male, going out and, one of my best friends is from Tennessee. He's a fucking ex-military guy. He doesn't agree with anything I say, but I love the guy to death, but we can agree to disagree. But this whole movement, it's not really a movement. It's become a movement. But how they feel is they're kind of asexual. Okay.
See. Let me make a point.
And what I mean by asexual is they don't feel that they have to advertise their sexuality. I mean, there is gay pride. And all.
Well, let me make a point on that point.
What we call pansexual.
Just that singular point. A point being, we used to have a saying that was similar to the one you brought up earlier, Niall. Facts don't care about your feelings.
No.
And what it comes down to for me, when it comes to things that are being presented to society that we need to do, or we're being asked that we should do, or there's being mandates that are being asked for, or laws or whatever, is much of it comes down to this is based on somebody ignoring facts and elevating feelings to the position of facts. And really what it comes down to is facts don't really care about how you feel. A fact is a fact is a fact. And so take that and broadly apply that to what we're talking about with all of this. A lot of this is stuff that people feel, and they have this feeling they want to be that way. I have a feeling I wish I had legislation as an artist. Frankly, there are some things where I say, I'm an artist. I do this and this and that. It would sure be nice to be recognized on this level. It would sure be nice to say that artists get a break on their insurance payments or their taxes because we are a certain kind of people. Some of us are gentle. Some of us are wicked and nasty. So it doesn't really matter all the attributes. What matters is if I wanted to try to legislate or convince society they need to treat me one way simply because of feelings that I have, doesn't mean everybody's going to accept those feelings, recognize them, or adhere to them. It's like the whole thing of the they, the them, the we, her, it, whatever your pronoun.
You absolutely, you're. I wouldn't say you're wrong, but for a thought experiment, let's take a look at this, right? And let's take a look at that community, okay? And let's take a look at, because yes, this isn't something new that's just arrived on the scene.
Oh,
this isn't something we have had all of these things, everything from the gay and lesbianism to the bisexuality, even the the transsexualness, right? We have had evidence of that throughout society and throughout humanity's history. It is everywhere. If you go back through history and you look at the record, you will find instances of this. This is nothing new. I mean, they have, there are older cultures in Europe who had, women who literally lived as men. They held male roles in society.
You can go to Roman society and find many of the same things.
Right, exactly. So,
major metropolitan.
If we go back, not that far, right, but we look back through time to, and we can use it recently. Let's look at the 80s with the AIDS issue. All right, and the level of stigma that brought on to gay men. And things like that, right?
And I lived through that whole period and saw it firsthand, as did Professor Bauer.
Exactly. So you see all of these things. What I kind of think you're really seeing now is you have a whole section of society that has lived effectively, to them, all right, caged. They have lived caged and closeted. They have been forced to live that way for so long because of societal norms and various, other constructs. And what ends up happening is it's like a pressure cooker. What happens if you leave the pressure cooker on the stove too long and it's got a bad valve?
It'll make everything
it makes a lot of noise, and
it blows up, and next thing you know, you've got a pan lid stuck in the ceiling,
exactly.
And your stove is caved in. It explodes, right? So what you're kind of seeing in a way is the result of those repressions, and they're speaking out. They're finally saying, "Hey, I have these feelings,
and JP,
all right,
you're
I have these
right.
issues."
You're
And
right.
by God, I should be able to live normally in society, free from judgment. And that's what they're pushing. And now, do I think they're going about it in the right ways? No, probably not. There's better ways to do everything.
I think it's early days, but I will say that what I have discovered through my own daughter and that this community is an incredible sense of it's not like it's totally different from two gay men who would want to adopt a child, and there's a big all the legislation around that was in this country and all this kind of stuff. It took years and years and years, and eventually, or gay marriage, or it's nothing to do with that. This community are just they're kind of asexual. It's not about, I want to be gay, I want to be lesbian, even though those
I think they want to be free to be whoever they feel they are, and they're
very enthusiastic about it, and it makes a lot of sense to me, given the history and given the fact that our planet is completely overpopulated.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Time out.
No. Hang on. Just let me finish my point.
Here. Let him finish
my point. They feel that really it's time for humans to look at each other genuinely, and say, I love this person. We don't have to have 10 kids together, to love each other, or we don't have to, I don't have to, find your ass attractive or your penis attractive or your vagina attractive or your breast attractive, to actually identify myself with you. It's like we just want to. It is kind of transhumanist, and that is where the LGBTQ community are coming from, Robert. From a transhumanist point of view, and that's
I do not agree with that at all. And
you can't because everything on TV and everything in the movies and everything is totally telling you the opposite.
No. First of all, I agree with everything that you said about the nature of the character of the individuals in the community. Very loving, very good people. All they want to be is themselves.
And by the way, you forgot to preface that, Professor Bauer, with Jane, you ignorant slut.
And
Sorry,
JP,
now that's
I
just a
agree
joke. It
with
just made me thought about
I
that.
agree with your premise,
Old SNL.
JP, that we are seeing a pressure cooker. But here's some
Yes.
information that I think that you both may need to consider. Number one, the whole identity of any kind of interaction with similar or odd genders has always been classified in three categories. You're either gay, which is kind of broad. You can be a gay woman or a gay man, meaning homosexual,
Oh,
or you're a
He'll
lesbian,
be back.
or you're bisexual. Okay, and up until, and what JP is talking about, up until the mid 90s and the early 2000s, those were the main categories. But now what's happened is it's become about the gender itself. We now have all of these different delineations of my identity is fluid. Today I'm bisexual. Tomorrow I'm lesbian.
Well,
The next day. Now hold on.
I've never met anybody who speaks like that, Robert.
Oh, I know. I understand that. That's why I said I agree with the character you're talking about. I'm talking about what JP's point was about this pressure cooker, about how there's been this suppression of people who have had these tendencies, and it's now, it's reaching a crescendo. The difference is that the crescendo that we're seeing now has somebody's come along and they've thrown ham hocks and spices and all kinds of shit that doesn't belong in that pot, that was never in the pot. It was never a part of the original recipe. It wasn't the Colonel Sanders of it being what it originally was. It's now been mixed with a bunch of, frankly, psychological issues that have been cooked up by people who, and it's been given to people, causing all the confusion and the narrative.
You can't say that for sure. You say it's been cooked up. I mean, you can't speak for everybody on the planet, Robert. I mean,
I'm not speaking for everybody in the planet. I'm talking about the narrative that's flooding the minds of people, causing confusion. Here's one question that I have for the.
But I've always said during this conversation, it's early days. This has to be fleshed out. It has to be fleshed out.
It will be. But here's a question that I always pose to the people that want to be transgender. Okay. And this is nothing other than an observational scientific question. If the original gender does not define the gender, the identity, then how does changing that gender affirm it? It doesn't. That doesn't make any sense to me.
There's too much
If
logic
my
in that.
genes, if my genitals are male, how is chopping it off and inserting stuff and creating something going to affirm that I'm another gender? My genes haven't changed. My biology hasn't changed. I mean, this is an example of the
psychological. That's a psychological aspect. I mean, it's multifaceted.
That's where it is.
That's a personal thing.
Do you remember what we were talking about last night? Was it last night or the night before? I think it was last night, wasn't it?
Night before.
Night before, yeah. We were talking about how we were slaves to, possibly, some spacefaring race who made us do things and, behave in certain ways and adjusted our DNA and did this and all these branches, and all of this stuff is related to this, and now we're kind of arguing about, there's men and there's women, there's men and there's women, there's men and there's women, and all these offshoots don't exist, and if we were created by an alien species, I'm sure that wasn't one that on their agenda, so. All of these things are tied in together if you actually broaden it out and open your frame of reference.
Well, if you really want to throw the frame of reference in on the historical data side, and this is these are the mythos. The original creators of our species were androgynous. They didn't have a sex.
Yes. So that's
how do we know that?
Maybe
that's what it says. How do we know that? Right? Speculation from a story, but I mean, the bottom line is scientifically and biologically, in order for procreation to happen, there has to be a seed and it has to be fertilized. It doesn't matter if it's human.
It doesn't have
if
to
it's
be
animal. That is biologically the way that we function. Was it the way that it started? Who knows? Is it the way that we're going to perpetuate ourselves? Apparently, because we can't create life because we don't have that knowledge. We don't have that that experience. We can alter it, we can change it, we can transform it, which is what a lot of this discussion is about. And I think that the whole idea of it transforming is something that isn't being thoroughly vetted from a logic, from a science, from a what are my feelings and why do I have these feelings perspective. People are confused on purpose because the chaos in the mind has been created for all of these. Well, today I felt gay. You know what? When I first found out what a lesbian was, I realized I was one too.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody say today I feel gay. Maybe I'm gay. Maybe I'm straight. Yeah, you know.
You've never heard that?
I've never heard somebody say to me, maybe I'm gay or maybe I'm straight. I'm not sure.
Holy shit! I've met a lot of people like that.
I've said that to myself. No, in this country, it's like, come on, guys. You know, you're not going to meet your local mate down the pub and say, hey, Niall, or hey, Robert, you know, I feel a bit gay today. I'm not sure whether I'm gay or straight, because, you know, we tend to shy away from that kind of stuff.
Gay,
you know, especially amongst men, you know.
Yeah.
So
I got a question for Niall. Here in this country, I remember there's more than one example I could put, but there was an older female couple that lived together, and nobody never thought nothing about them. They just called them Aunt this. I think one of them's name was their past. Now, one of them, I remember they called her Aunt Shirley and Aunt whatever, and everybody knew that they was lesbian, you know, and they was in their 60s and 70s. This is back in the 80s when I was a young lad, but nobody never thought anything any more or less of them. You know, they're part of the community, and it was a small country community. You know, it goes back to the live and let live. Yeah. But, you know, growing up, you know, I grew up with cousins that was more of a tomboy. You know, they wore the jeans, you know, they threw the football, they run around through the fields and hung from trees. Then you seen the guys, you know, we didn't think nothing about it. You know, you had the friend or whatever, or family that played with the Barbie doll. You know, the adults looked at him a little weird, like, oh, well, but we never thought of that. And it goes back to hatred can be taught. Intolerance can be taught.
Yes.
Of course it can.
And like I said, you know, and I got a friend, he's a male nurse, and I give him a bunch of shit about being a male nurse. But at the end of the day, his profession, he works with 99% women. So what better job could a heterosexual male have than working with 99% women?
Target rich environment.
Pretty much.
That's a good point.
And I give him shit. And like I said, I've never.
Listen, I'm really sorry for taking over the conversation.
Oh, hell no. That's what we're here to do.
But very stimulating and appreciative.
That's what we're here to do. But while we're on that little break, I'm going to show you guys a couple of pictures.
Oh Lord, it ain't
going back to bracers and.
I think I'm not sure.
Oh Lord.
That is my brother and me back in 1983. So that is 40 years ago.
Definitely the 80s.
Ago.
Oh, God, that picture's as old as I am.
It's definitely the 80s, but I only brought that up because it's the only picture I have where I have bracers showing.
Yeah.
I had a pair of plaid jeans.
And he's wearing a waistcoat.
Yeah. Yep. He was a biker. So he's wearing a leather waistcoat, and I'm wearing suspenders. And my jeans, by the way, dark blue, but they were plaid.
Oh, is that a green stripe in those jeans, or is it just a blue plaid? Yeah, I can't.
There's a green stripe, and there was one faded red stripe that was very infrequent in the plaid. Very faded.
That's a great picture.
Suspenders. That's my older brother and me.
Yeah.
So what was that? I was 22 or 23 in that picture.
Please tell me that's bell bottom. Was it bell bottom?
John Ward and me, who I mentioned. This was our clothing in Egypt when when we were in Egypt, and even when we were on our own little expedition for our book, we only had a couple of people and some Egyptian Sherpas, if you will. This is the way we dressed when we were in Egypt. John is wearing plaid. That's his
very snazzy.
Prince Charles
very snazzy.
private tailor. I'm wearing a houndstooth.
Is he wearing a sweater?
Yes, it was cool that day. This is that's Diyar el Bahre in Luxor right there, Hatshepsut's temple. And so this is Luxor, Egypt. It was about 67 degrees that day. So yeah, he's got a sweater on. And then one other picture of just John and I. There we are, dressed to the nines, riding the boat down the Nile, the Dahabea. And that was our captain right there. And that's at Gebel El Silsila in the background. That's John and Maria's archaeological site. But that's the way we dress. Now, we weren't wearing ties out there. John had a cravat on. And I think you can see it in this picture a little bit.
Gonna say a cravat or an ascot?
Yeah. He's got a cravat that matches his pocket silk. There.
I have a great reproduction of the ascot that a lot of the RAF guys wore during the Battle of Britain. It's a dark, almost navy blue with a white spots, and oh yeah, it is on point. If you can get an ascot and you know how to tie it and you can get it set up right and you pair it with the right stuff, killer.
It is.
I just remembered even my dog has a bow tie that was sent over that's got the Union Jack on it, and he looks very dapper in his bow tie. You don't see many pit bulls with bow ties.
No, or bracers or waistcoats.
No. You know what? I might have to dress him up. Give him his little breeches or whatever.
There you go. I don't dress my dog up.
I think Noel doesn't like the term waistcoat because it's a British term, and I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Quote, he says.
How about the kilt? You know what I'm saying? The kilt.
Yeah.
The kilt is an everyday wear.
They're the Scots, so the Scots and the Irish are like this.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're like this. We've always been like this.
I wear my fill of egg or my fill of more.
We hate the English.
That's it.
You think Wendy's watching?
I never did understand that whole beef, but
and the Welsh are
early
like
enough.
The Welsh is the dysfunctional child in the middle child in the family. The Welsh are like, well, we like both of you. We don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Whereas the Scots
who's gonna rate us tomorrow?
Fuck you. We're with the fucking Irish because the fucking Irish, the fucking Irish.
Fucking Irish.
It's all about passion,
Yeah.
Whereas the Welsh are a little bit more subdued, and the English are just fucking the Antichrist.
Yeah.
God.
There's a great comedian, Darragh O'Brien, who was made famous in England, and he says he was asked a question about Ireland and England because we're practically neighbors. There's only 80 kilometers between.
Practically,
50 miles for the U.S. crowd, right?
Yeah.
The Welsh and the Irish who could.
And he says, "How do you feel about the English?" He says, "I don't." He was asked a question about the ocean. Oh yeah, the Atlantic. He was interviewed by an American. Because
those bastards.
Americans, we love you Irish guys because you're very funny, And he was like, yeah. So tell me, how do you feel about the English?
How do you really feel about the English?
Yeah, we always heard you had a problem with the English, and this kind of stupid, really stupid questions. And he says, well, we have no problem with the English. We have more of a problem with the ocean. And the guy was like, what do you mean? He says, we have more of a problem with the water. Because number one, it's too cold, and number two, it brought the English to us. So we actually have a problem with the ocean and not the English. So it's typical Irish humor. It's like the ocean brought the English to us. So it's as soon as the English arrived, all hell went. But
Yes.
it's the fault of the ocean. The fucking ocean brought the English
Yeah.
to us.
Oh,
And you can ask a Scandinavian, you can ask someone from Norway or from Sweden.
I have to mention one thing before we go tonight because it is that time.
But we've had such a
everybody
great
goes. Oh.
I thought we were here for the night. I was just about to break open
the
a
morning
bottle
for
of Jack.
you. It's what 6:30 there.
Yeah,
5:30 in the morning.
a mini marathon.
My kids came back from Disney tonight, and my son Flynn. They're all sitting in the back seat as we're driving home, and Flynn says something about, "Oh, Dad, did you know that Rowan doesn't know anything about what the Roman Empire is?" Rowan's 12. I'm like, "What?" And I said, "Where have I gone wrong as a father that you don't know what the Roman Empire is?" And so,
according to the internet, men think about the Roman Empire every day, or at least several times a week.
At least. And so I just thought of that again, and of bringing that up just now because I just had a message ding in, and it's my daughters who were with them in Florida. Abby flew up here to fly with them, then she flew back home to North Carolina, and Bryn and Zach drove from Florida to North Carolina. So they're all just getting home about now. But she said here, let's see, I got to find this for you because I thought it was very funny. She said, "Oh my God," it starts with OMG. Hang on. And that's what made me think of this. And mentioning this, blah, blah, blah. Where the hell is it? Oh, come on. OMG, she says, "Please teach Rowan about Rome." We were aghast when we found out she did not know what the Roman Empire was. And so now that's all she said about it. But it made me think about it again, is that I'm going to have to take my child aside and just for a few minutes, I won't bore her to tears, but I'm going to show her, hey, I want you to see it. You got to watch. I'm going to show you something about the Roman Empire. And I don't know, show her something on the murder of Caesar or something like that.
Ever watch season 1 of Rome on HBO? I mean,
watch what? Oh, season 1
of Rome.
Yeah, my 12-year-old. That'll be really good for her.
Oh, Britannia's got a lot of the Rome in it too. But before we go, I got an idea, and we're all gonna have to pitch in.
I wasn't done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
no. I was gonna say on a lighter note before it loses my mind again. We all need to pitch in and send a bit of our culture, because we've been accused of not having no culture here in the United States.
Not having no culture.
No culture. We all need to pitch in and send Niall a proper pair of pointer bibbed overalls so he can have his galluses.
Oh, yes.
Right there. And get him a pair of brogans, the big old boots.
You say that, but it's never going to happen. You say that, but it's never going to happen.
Now, you send me your sizes in American, please.
Yeah.
Need your American
none of this
sizes.
metric shit.
Yeah. None of your
okay.
Well, but Niall's gonna know. Niall's not gonna know what brogans are. They're just brogues.
Yeah,
they're your shoes.
Brogues are shoes.
Yeah. We need them in freedom fractions, not none of that metric stuff. No, but you know what? I bet there's enough of us here that we could all pitch in a couple of dollars, and we could get you a really, I don't know, the last pair of bibbed overalls I bought was like $100. And but everybody started wearing them for fashion, and used to. That's what the farmers would wear because that's all they could afford. And Pointer brand was like bottom of the barrel.
Thank you for the offer.
I always loved when my wife came out in a pair of bib overalls and nothing else.
That's it. Say, hey, side boob right there. Turn around.
Yeah, listen, Robert, before you disappear.
Yes.
I've subscribed to your channel, right? What time is it where you are now?
So it's 10:41. So I'm 2 hours behind East Coast. So it's
he's mountain time.
Yeah, I'm mountain time.
Yeah.
I'm central time.
I think you're it's got to be
I'm miles ahead of you, and it's
you're like 5:41 in the morning.
Yeah,
you're 5 hours ahead of me.
You're tomorrow already.
Yeah.
But
hell, I'm tomorrow already.
That's not.
There's two people in this conversation living in the future.
Yeah. So I just want to tell you, Robert.
I'm sorry for you.
I've subscribed to your channel, and I'll give you a shout, and I hope we can chat.
Oh yeah, it would be great.
And I hope you don't feel I was attacking you tonight.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm not
just,
offended or attacked at all.
I think we had a great conversation tonight. You know,
I do too.
You know,
I really enjoyed it.
I mean, who can go from ties and underwear to
found a new end of show
LGBTQ?
bell.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And Miles, just remember, it's always fluid.
It's always fluid.
Right.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Short, but it's thin. All right, guys.
All right.
We're gonna call it. Oh, good night, Niall. He's gone.
Oh, he's out. He had to go break water.
There you go.
He popped smoke.
Michael, good having you here tonight.
Yes, sir.
You have a good night. We'll see you next time.
See you, Michael.
And Jason, good to see you, brother. As always, you're looking
swaven to boner for a change. I mean, that's a nice look on you.
See, now I dress that way for Robertson. I'll put on
Indeed.
a tie.
Maybe I should start doing that when you guys have Robertson go into the captain's cabin.
You should do that.
I can just slide in with some really great threads and
I think that's a good idea. Well, it's good to have you. And tomorrow, I guess what I have another cheerleading competition to go to tomorrow.
Are you doing the pom poms or the batons?
Grade school and middle schools and Jesus. Get this. I'm going to have one complaint before I go. We're parents of one of the cheerleaders, our 9-year-old, and Rowan was doing it, but she dropped out because she'd rather play basketball and volleyball than cheer. And so we got to go to this competition, cheer competition. Not cheerleaders are supposed to be there to cheer the school on at games and all of that. Now they got their own competitions. They get trophies and all that stuff. But now I find out this is someplace we have to be at 9:30 in the morning, and it goes till 3:30 in the afternoon.
Good.
Your kid is on for a grand total of 9 to 11 minutes of the whole day. They're on it, your kid's on at 10:10, but she's also got to be here at 2:45 for the awards ceremony. Oh, okay, we'd say. But then I find out, Rainey tells me earlier today, oh, by the way, it's $18 per person to get in. I said, now we had to pay like $5 at the last one we were at or something. I said, $18? And then it was $10 to park at the high school where they're holding it. So we're paying $46 tomorrow just to park the fucking car and for two parents to walk in with the kid. Kid's free. So I said, I'm not being a cheapskate, but I'm like, oh, and then if we buy lunch and gas, because it's in Minneapolis, it's not like the local high school.
Mm-hmm.
Drive an hour to get in. You're talking $100 a day,
and you're blowing the whole day. You're gone all day for a 10-minute show.
For 10 minutes of watching your kid. It's like I said on the show the other night. It's like going to your grade school kids, your second graders spring concert. Just great. My kid gets to sing in the spring concert or narrate in one of the songs, like they all do. But then they got the kindergartners, the first graders, the second graders, the third graders, the fourth graders, and the fifth grade. No, the fifth grade is middle school now. So all of those, each have 2 songs. So you're going to hear your kids sing in their choir, and then you got to sit through 4 other grades of their 2 songs. Like kids, I don't really care about. It's like I don't care. I don't like kids. I do okay with kids. I like high school kids. I like kids who can understand me when I talk to me. When I talk to them, I like kids who I could talk to and hold a conversation about philosophy in Rome. I don't like.
Sounds like you've got some work to do with Ron.
I do. She was really interested in the Holocaust, which was, and it frankly it unsettles her very deeply.
Yeah.
She gets
start off with lead in with something cool. Testudo.
Crossing of the Rubicon?
Yeah, like the whole the Roman formations.
Yeah,
do something battle formations. That's
There you
know,
go.
it's not so heavy. Kind of cool.
No. With today's world, you got to go with Caligula. Come on,
Caligula, yes.
Jesus.
yeah. I mean,
Gotta start with Caligula.
Yeah. Hey, I've got this Roddy McDowell
Caligula.
movie.
Wait a minute. Caligula. Well, it's like I told my kids tonight in the car. I said, "You do remember I just wrote a book on a character in ancient Rome?" "Oh, I didn't read that, Dad." I go, "What? I wrote it for kids your age. I've got a great battle scene in that book. I've got Julius Caesar in that book. The Gallic Wars in that book." She's like, "Yeah, that's why I didn't read it." So,
hey,
anyway.
Jason, I'm still waiting for you to hit me up on
Oh,
Facebook.
geez. Sorry. Yeah. No.
Obviously, this is the third and last.
You're as bad as I am.
After this, I'm going to take it personal. So I'm going to hunt you down if you don't tag me.
He's going to go home and weep into his giant pillow. You know what that's from?
Look at the size of his head. It's a virtual planetoid. It's got its own
planet. It's got asteroids.
It's like Sputnik, but without
Head.
all the pinty things.
Head down.
Head, pants, no.
Woman, pants.
Mom, you get your news from the Weekly World. The Juice Tiger. The Juice Tiger. Really? Ain't that
little
something?
known secret that the whole world is run by the Pentaveret.
No one has the Pentaveret.
The Pentaveret,
Led by a man known
place
only
called
the Colonel.
the Meadows. Oh no! What did he say? He said it was the Rothschilds, the Gettys, the so and so's and the so and so's, and Colonel Sanders before he went teats up.
Yeah.
And don't forget, Colonel Linguist.
That's right. There it is.
Yeah, great. Now the Colonel, the Colonel Angus sketch off Saturday Night Live.
Colonel Angus. Yeah.
Oh, Colonel Angus. You start.
Colonel Angus and Colonel Linguist.
Oh, gosh.
All right, guys, let's get out of here. Jason,
All right, I'm
see you
out.
later, brother.
Have a good one. Take care, guys.
Same with you, Professor. Have a good night.
Do the same. Great weekend. Take care.
You too. Everybody else, thank you for being here. Thanks for being part of this show. You know how much I love you. You know who loves you. It's me. And so we're going to get out of here. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. We'll see you Sunday morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's 10 a.m. Eastern. That would be 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. And if you're in Hawaii, it's like 2 in the morning. So my daughters used to live there. So, and I've got friends in Australia. It'll be like 2 in the afternoon tomorrow. So, all right. Thanks for being here. Everybody else, live long and prosper. Shalom.